All right, thank you so much. So I will welcome the moderator for the session, and as she comes, I will say just a few words about her. So Dr. Mafini Dosso is an economist of innovation and projects manager profession, European Commission, Joint Research JRC, and has over 14 years of professional experience in the analysis of research and innovation policies, of innovation systems, technological and industrial development, Industry 4.0, value chains, innovation networks covering both Europe and Sub-Saharan Africa. She's also an academic and has co-edited books on entrepreneurship, technology, commercialization, and innovation policy in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Mafini Dosso, you're welcome. Thank you for the round of applause. So she will be in charge for this session. Over to you, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I guess you can hear me well. And I guess you're not sleepy because we just finished the lunch. So this session 3 should wake you up a bit, I hope. And just before starting, because I have half on digital and half on paper. So the thematic of the third session is creating shared value. And on the structure, it will be structured about the keynote speech of Dr. Kamau Gachigi, right? He's here. Okay, good. The pronunciation is good, not too Frenchicized. Very good. And we will have the pleasure to have online Dr. Ellie Osir, STI advisor at IDRC in Canada. Is she here? Sorry, I forgot my glasses actually.
It's a him, no? And he's here.
She's not online. Not yet. Okay, very good. So before calling our Dr. Kamau for the presentation, I would just like to highlight what we're going to discuss this afternoon. We have a 45-minute setting. So it's somehow, of course, it's a continuity of the discussion that took place this morning on digital innovation, digital revolution, and the global challenge. But we'll be focusing more on what I do think is the core of the PASET RSIF program, which is the link between the university and the industry. So what we will discuss here basically is the different challenges and the business opportunity that can come out of the relation between the university and the industry, and how what we call the quadruple helix actor, the university, the NGO, the industry, and the government can come together to co-create solution. Which kind of solution? The one that will help us to address our developmental challenge. So without further ado, I would like to call Dr. Kamau Gachigi, Executive Director of Gearbox, Pan-African Network, and the RSIF partner organization. Please, the round of applause is very well deserved.
I have a presentation. I believe the slides will be up. Okay. Thank you. 15, 20 minutes. Perfect. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Our guests of honor from the various ministries in various countries and the leadership at RSIF, and all of you, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here to share our experience within the context that has just been introduced. I run Gearbox Pan-African Networks, and I'll be giving our own experience as it relates to the topic that you've just heard being introduced at Gearbox in Nairobi, Kenya. And on the right-hand side, it just gives a relationship of the three companies that make up our ecosystem. On the left, you see the Gearbox Pan-African Network, which is a non-profit company that's registered in Kenya, has been supported since 2014, since we first started, by various foundations around, especially in the US. And then we have, as we are sort of being weaned off foundation money so that we can be self-sustaining, we set up two for-profit companies. One is called Machine Africa Network of Industries. For those who speak Swahili, the acronym is Mashinani, and Mashinani means local area. And then we have at the bottom Gearbox Europlacer, and I'll be showing both of those in the course of the presentation and how they relate one to another. I'll begin with Gearbox and a short video. Let's see, I think it'll load automatically. This video is just really just to give you a sense of what it is that we do, the kinds of machines that we use, and really, in a sense, as it loads, let me describe that we're looking at digital technologies as far as fabrication in particular and manufacturing are concerned. I don't know whether up there you're able to make it run, because when I press click, it just goes to the next slide rather than running the video. So the machines that are shown there are part of what we call digital fabrication. And what we mean here is to be able to design a product. Okay. So I understand the video did not upload, so I'll just describe. So what we do is we come out of an engineering background. I used to teach engineering at the University of Nairobi, and I was given a task at one point to set up a science and technology park. And the idea really is to be a bridge between the university's research and the industry, the commercial space, and to see how we can get a higher percentage of whatever's being done in research actually becoming products in the marketplace. The backdrop to this is that you're looking at what in Kenya and in many African countries, the IT revolution. So in Kenya, we had mobile money coming online in the early 2000s, and it transformed the way people do business. As you know, it was the first instance in the world of mobile money transfer over the phones. And a lot of startups came out of this area. A lot of people who simply had some software and were able to create some payment system and so on. And for us within the hard engineering, we looked at this and we thought how nice it would be to be able to have the same kind of opportunity for people who are designing products or machines and so on. Of course, the barriers to market entry for such are much higher. And so we looked at it and said, what is it that we need to put into place to be able to make it easier for people who are in engineering in particular to be able to get their products into the marketplace? And one thing that we identified is the ability to make a prototype, a good prototype, a working prototype with which you can test the market. We also thought that it's very important to train the engineers in design thinking. So typically within the context of the university, design thinking or human-centered design is not something which is taught deliberately to the students. So quite often I would look at the student projects that I was supervising and my colleagues, and you'd find that if a student selected their a project for themselves, it would tend to be quite a challenging project as far as engineering, something that their peers are interested in, but very often the marketplace was not interested in what they were doing. And so, and even if there was some slight market applicability to the research area, it would have benefited much more had it been subjected to a design thinking approach. So you're learning what the market really wants, going to study the marketplace so that you design a specific solution for the product user that you imagine. And so we put this kind of thing into the environment that we've created. And we're also looking at other kinds of design as far as physics is concerned, of course, computer-aided design, and then design for manufacturing, because very often you'll find a young student who's kind of inexperienced might design a product, but hasn't really thought, in my context, in my city, if I was going to commercialize and manufacture this product, which machines are available from a manufacturing perspective to make what I've designed? And if the machines or the systems that are available are not compatible with the design, you have to adjust the design so that it can be made where you live. And then of course, design in terms of industrial design, which is very important. So all these kinds of designs are what you'll be exposed to at Gearbox within the community that we've set up. In terms of our functions, the main function, as you can see there, is access to the machines. So we're assuming that one of the big problems with the engineer is that you can't access machines to be able to completely design whatever it is that you're designing. And we said, why don't we make these machines available in a communal manner? So quite often at the university, you'll find that the workshops and so on are closed at a certain point in time, maybe 5 p.m. The security guard comes and locks it. And if you really want to have a proper product design, there must be rigor. Students should be allowed even to sleep inside the lab if necessary in order to really complete the design to the point where it's market ready or ready for pilot. And so we decided, why don't we, and then the other problem, of course, at a lot of the universities is that the equipment that's available in the workshops is not very modern. And so you'll find that if you're looking to do a CNC type of machining, which is computer numerical control, meaning that you've designed this shape on the computer, and now just the same way that you'll send a document to print on the printer, you put the material in place in the machine, you press a button, and the messages are sent to the machine to begin to fabricate exactly what you've drawn. And this is now a very important process for automation and modern industrial manufacturing systems, CNC as it's called. And so we ourselves designed such machines, and the video was showing some of the machines that we build ourselves. And this is coming out of the Fab Lab network originally, which we set up a Fab Lab at the University of Nairobi. There is one in other parts of Africa, South Africa, Rwanda, Ghana, and other countries, Egypt. And out of this Fab Lab setting, in terms of the software around, or the thinking around Fab Labs, it comes from a course at MIT called How to Make Almost Anything. That's the name of a class. And then the second theme within that context is how to make the machines that make almost anything. So from the African context, it's so important not only to be able to design products, but we need to be developing a generation of original equipment manufacturers on the continent, so that when you need a machine for manufacturing, you're not going to buy it from China, from India, from Germany, you're buying it from an African company. And that's what we're really pushing. We have a small army of young men and women who are building machines like plasma cutters, laser cutters, 3D printers, and all that. And so the knowledge around how to do this is critical within the modern university setting. So as far as function is concerned, if you see the workshop membership, we began by saying, once we have this workshop, which we raise the money to buy a lot of digital machines, but also analog machines, how will the students access these machines? And not just students, but also members of the public. And that's a really important point, because in terms of population, the number of people, if you take the population that is gifted within engineering, in other words, God-given gift, a very small percentage ends up being able to do an engineering degree. And yet you'll find that these people quite often will end up being artisans, maybe doing metal fabrication in a very sort of low productivity setting, making suitcases, furniture, all kinds of things out of sheet metal, out of wood. They don't have the benefit of modern tools, and yet they could be brilliant in terms of what in terms of their endowment, in terms of intelligence, but they never had the opportunity to be educated. And so we call this center a maker space. And the idea of the definition of a maker is somebody who has that gift but hasn't been trained or educated within engineering. So it could be the person I've just described, an artisan without the education. It could be a neuroscientist who's very highly educated but just not in engineering. The commonality between the two is that they don't have a formal education in engineering, and therefore the manner in which they'll interact with these machines is at what we call a high level. They don't go deep. But even at that high level, you can be taught how to take a code. Like a lot of part of the fourth industrial revolution is having systems that are controlled by electronics, by microcontrollers, microchips. And these microchips have to be programmed using software. And so you can teach somebody to take somebody else's code. I'll give you an example. Somebody wants to build a security system for supermarkets where they live, and they want to buy cameras, and they want to be able to connect those cameras so that the owner of the supermarket can see on his phone or her phone what's happening in the supermarket. It's a very important function. It releases the owner not to be there all the time because of trust issues. And they might take a code which is designed for 3 cameras. And what we'll do is we'll teach them how to adjust it to the number of cameras they need for their system. So they're not taught how to code, because that's starting from first principles. They don't have the time, they don't have the background to do that. But there's a way still they can come into coding in almost a cheating way. And the pedagogy that's used coming now out of the MIT department, it takes from the military, which says ready, aim, fire. And what we say is ready, fire, aim. And so when you come into our center, you begin, before you know what you're doing, you're connecting wires. You don't know what these wires are doing. And you press a button and the LED is flashing. And you're so excited the LED is flashing. So now you want to learn more. How come the LED is flashing? So you've already fired, and now you come back to aim. This is a way to kind of short circuit the traditional educational system for people who don't have the luxury to go through from step to step through the education system, and yet be very useful even to the marketplace. We therefore began by charging a membership. So you come in and you pay like, it was $100 a month for everyday access. In Kenya, 10,000 shillings. We learned very quickly this is too expensive. Most of the kinds of people who want to use our space cannot afford this money. And so we instead began a training center whereby we call it Gearbox Academy, and we teach short courses. The most popular course is embedded systems. Those of you who are in IoT, Internet of Things, and so on, you'll know what I'm talking about. And you want to be able to embed a computer into any kind of device. You know, your microwave has computers, your car has many computers, your fridge, and what have you. And so embedded systems is rapidly becoming a central part of our lives. So we teach this so that people are able to develop products such as, coming out of our space, a way to sell gas for cooking. So most poor people in many poor countries cannot afford the cylinder of gas. So they use charcoal, they use firewood. This is very bad for the environment. It's bad for their health because of the smoke inhalation. It's inefficient and slow and so on. So by getting an IoT system, we created a new regulator, a company in our space, a new regulator, which you put onto the gas cylinder, and then it's a pay-as-you-go system. So the gas is sitting in your house, you don't own it. It's sitting in your house, and you buy it 10 cents or 50 cents at a go. So you pay the money using mobile money. The server at the phone company will send a signal to the regulator to open for X period of time, enough time for you to cook. And then you're able to slowly, after maybe 1 year or 2 years of using this system, you own the gas cylinder and so on. So these are kinds of technologies that we encourage in our space and make happen. Very often, people coming to our space are not able to use, they don't want to use the system themselves, but there are people who understand there's a market for a water filter or whatever it is, and they come into our space and they contract our engineers to make what they need. Now, there's, just to contextualize from the point of view again of the topic, this is work that I was part of a team at the World Economic Forum, which is looking at the readiness of any country in the world for the fourth industrial revolution. So what you see on the left-hand side is a structure of production. And this is a snapshot of the present state of the country, the economy of the country. It's divided between economic complexity of the country, which is the range of things that you can competitively make within your country, and meaning that you can make a machine like the one I described, but maybe your machine will be much more expensive than the one from China, so people won't buy it, and the scale in your marketplace. And then on the right is the drivers of production. So policymakers, these are the levers that they can use to be able to race their economy into the fourth industrial revolution. And you see there, technology and innovation, human capital, this is a space we operate in. But there's global trade and investment, institutional framework, sustainable resources, demand environment. If these are not being actively worked upon, then the actions that are being taken at the universities and the places where they look at human capital and technology and innovation will not amount to much. You'll have good exhibitions to show people these are the kinds of innovations we have, but they're not getting into the marketplace. That's why I was very pleased when I heard about the Insects for Food project and the response that Dr. gave, that there's policy, there's all kinds of legal policy instruments that have to be put into place to help things to move. I find myself having to lobby very often people in government to get what we need to be put into place. We also look at import substitution. So these are the imports into Kenya. How can we substitute those? Because of time, I'll just flash to the next. How do we promote our exports? Tea, cut flowers, refined petroleum. These are the typical things we're exporting from Kenya. And this is a product space analysis done by the Observatory of Economic Complexity. And it's showing a lot of dots that indicate the interactivity between various parts of your manufacturing base or industrial base. And wherever you see that dark area in the middle, that is your strength as a nation. That is where you should be having your most active industries. And for Kenya, our most important exports, refined petroleum, cut flowers, leather and hides, tea, legumes, they're all outside of the zone. So from a policy perspective, we need to be advising the policymakers to do the right thing to shift tea into that zone, legumes and so on, and so that the efficiency within the marketplace is enhanced in the ways that we need so that we can become more competitive and expand our economies. From the point of view of the company that we're working with, we talked about the quadruple helix. This is work that we were doing, the Kenya Commercial Bank Foundation and the MasterCard Foundation having a project which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, Young Africa Works, to create 30 million jobs in Africa. And we built greenhouses in part of Nairobi. We did 100 in this particular case, and we built all this with the people, artisans who we were training to be able to bend the metal and so on, and even to make sensors for humidity and temperature and what have you that are reporting the data to the cloud every so often, very frequently. And then decisions are made based on the data. And so we're now, that project had to be revised because of COVID that changed the price, almost doubled the price of steel, but it's something we're still looking at. But alongside that, we're looking at some very fundamental products, not very high tech. And the idea here is the government is the biggest customer in any country. And we're saying to the government, you should be buying from us, import substitution. Why are you buying hospital beds from around the world, when a simpler product as it is, we should be able to do this. And in our model, we then give that opportunity to the artisans who come in, and MasterCard would be paying for the training. So this is a bed we made. This is it in a more basic state, and we made that fundamentally. And Mr. Jeff Njao, who is sitting over there, he's a CEO of the company Machine Africa, which is doing this. We came together because this work, as it gains market share and brings revenue in, will also feed Gearbox in terms of being, because Gearbox is a pipeline. So that's how the for-profit and the non-profit work together. And of course, in time now, we're going to motorize this bed, and the kind of technologies that we've developed for CNC machines, controlling motors, stepper motors, servo motors, it's very easy to be able to automate a bed like that and gain market share. It's the important thing is to have revenue, and then you can start to employ in all kinds of markets. And I won't go through this slide because of time. I just want to show that we're setting up small centers around the country. The first one that we're building is in a place called Limuru. It's almost finished right now. And this is where we'll be looking for various products that the government needs, but also the private sector, because you have to hedge against the possibility or the risk that the government might fail to pay you and you can't do anything about it. So you must have a backup plan, and you should have the a private sector to sell in as well. We also have an electronics partnership, because we were doing at a prototyping level electronic circuits, and we now partner with a company out of the UK called Europlacer. We've set up a factory that does surface mount technology. This is electronic circuit boards, and we can produce thousands and thousands per week using this machinery. And our objective now is to be able to encourage so many young Africans who are designing circuits, and they send to China the design for it to be made. And it's a very difficult and arduous process to get what you want. And so this, we're very excited about the capacity to do this. And we want in time to set up different types of productions like injection molding, certain types of manufacturing that are very critical for the marketplace, so that when a young person starts the company, they come and use our facility, they contract us to make what they need. When they make enough money, the ones who are very successful, then they go out and buy their own equipment, have their own factory. But this is a launch pad, if you like. And this is something that we're really pushing very, very hard. And we're setting up a fund right now to be able to take advantage of this huge influx of money coming into the continent for startups. Last year was $5 billion came into Africa. The first 2 months of this year was $2.5 billion already, just in January and February, coming into Africa. Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, and Egypt are the main companies where the main countries where this money is coming in. And you also have 8 unicorns in Africa now, $1 billion valuation companies, which is a sign of how important the continent is becoming for the venture capitalists. When they see unicorns, one of the founders came to Gearbox a month ago, and he has 2 unicorns, Flutterwave, which is $3.7 billion, and Andela, which is about $1.4 billion valuation. And this is a young African, he's barely 33 years old. So this is a very encouraging sign. And I think this for RSIF is very important to be able to see how do we bring this venture capital money into the space as they better understand that Africa can be seen as one market as the free trade agreement starts to take shape and take form and so on. I think because of time, I must leave it there. Yeah, I think I'll just stop there so that there's time for discussion. Sorry, I took more time than I should have. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kamau. No, you can stay with us. Don't go away. I have some questions for you. Actually, it was very interesting. And it was, I'm looking at Moses and Julius now saying that, why did you make this presentation so short? You know, me and Dr. Kamau are very interested in Industry 4.0, CNC, OEM, all these different acronyms that we know very well. So before I give my own opinion, which is not important for the moment since I'm the moderator, I'd just like to check if Dr. Ellie Osir is online.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly. Thanks a lot for being with us. Welcome. So I remind Dr. Ellie Osir is a STR advisor at the International Development Research Center in Canada. So Dr. Ellie Osir will give us some feedback or some insight on how Africa STI system could be strengthened using the ecosystem approach. So focusing also on the interlinkage between the actors. So it's still in the discussion we are having. Dr. Ellie, you have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thanks to the organizers for inviting me. Yeah, I'm actually a senior program specialist with IDRC. IDRC stands for International Development Research Center of Canada, but I'm actually based in Nairobi, so I'm not in Canada at the moment. So IDRC, very briefly, IDRC is a crown corporation of Canada that champions and funds research and innovation with and alongside developing regions to drive global change. IDRC invests in high quality research in developing countries. We share knowledge with researchers and policymakers for greater uptake and use. We also mobilize global alliances to build more sustainable and inclusive world. Like I said, we have offices here in Nairobi in Kenya, Dakar, Senegal. There's also an office in New Delhi, India, another one in Montevideo, Uruguay, and our headquarters is in Ottawa, Canada. So let me just say that I will not be responding directly to the previous presentation by Kamau. I think it was very well done. Instead, what I'll do is to share some thoughts about how we can strengthen or build STI sector to support not only industrialization, but actually both economic development, but also social development. So it goes beyond just industrialization in Africa. So as you know, STI and STI policies are very important for development for two reasons. Number one, they are crucial for economic growth and also industrial competitiveness. Secondly, STI and STI policies can be targeted at specific development challenges, such as education, food insecurity, emerging diseases, and also climate-induced fragility. For this reason, it is possible to link STI policies to specific social challenges, including hunger, limited health services, or particular economic activities, such as agriculture, as well as structures, for example, in informal economy, that dominate the economic landscape in developing countries. However, we all know that the STI systems in developing countries are still very weak, and in most cases, they're also fragmented. We also know that they are not fully integrated with other complementary policies, such as trade policies, education policies, and the like. So in many of our countries in Africa, the STI systems can be conceptualized from an evolutionary perspective. That is, they can be conceptualized as systems that are still emerging, where only some components are present and where the interactions between and among the components are still information and therefore fragmented. So you may have a particular component, but these components are not joined up properly. The level of social inclusion is also crucial for the evolution of strong STI systems. The persistence of inequalities or the exclusion of some parts of the population based on gender, sexual orientation, religion, ethnicity, traditions, etc., impact negatively on the evolution of fully fledged and inclusive STI systems. Consequently, if we are thinking about strengthening of STI systems, then we need to adopt a holistic approach that can address the constraints in emerging STI systems. These include weak business regulations and intellectual property rights, high levels of corruption and social exclusion. All these should be key concerns for STI policymakers in Africa and other developing countries. As was mentioned before, the conceptualization of STI systems can be depicted using quadruple helix model. This model depicts the complex interconnections and interactions among key STI system actors, especially policymakers. You have researchers, research actors such as universities, research institutes, think tanks, and citizens. You have also knowledge users, for example, governments, policymakers, industries, private sector, and civil societies. You also have what we call intermediary or bridging organizations, such as science granting councils, financial bodies, technology agents, industry or business associations. So all these things come together into the system. So if we are strengthening STI, we must think of it from that perspective of a system, how the various components of the system can operate. We also have to remember that for these components to work, we also need to have what we call institutions. And institutions in this context means the standards, the laws, the policy regimes, as well as other policies that are required. These institutions regulate how the various components of the STI systems operate. So basically, in summary, you have bodies such as organizations, you also have individuals, but you also have what we call institutions. And all these things have to work together. So with that in mind, let me just share a few points and then I'll stop. So what are some of the key points that we should keep in mind when talking about strengthening the STI sector in Africa? The first point to keep in mind is that the strengthening of the STI sector should be viewed in the context of both economic as well as social development. So it's not just economic, for example, through industrialization, but it's also social development. The second point is that we should adopt a systems approach that considers all the actors involved. So not only R&D performing bodies such as universities, research institutes, and think tanks, but also intermediary actors such as donor funding agencies, councils, business associations, and the like. We must also take into account enabling policies as well as structures such as commercialization structures that are necessary for innovation. It is also important for us to consider complementary policies, such as policies that deal with investments, trade, education. All these policies come together and they're critical for innovation. We should also keep in mind that not all innovation activities are driven by R&D. We have a lot of innovations that are not R&D based. All these innovations are equally important if the goal is to improve what we call the ecosystem for innovation. And last point is that we must understand the political economy that influence STI for development. We know that STI cannot operate in a vacuum, but that it operates in the context of a political social and economic environments. So it is very important when we are talking about STI development in Africa to be able to be cognizant of the political economy that system operates in. And this varies from country to country. In fact, it also varies from time to time, even within the same country. So for instance, if corruption is rampant in a particular context, it doesn't matter how efficient the STI system that we are trying to develop is, it will never operate and will not achieve its aim. So really the parting shot here is that we need to take a systems approach. We need to consider the whole ecosystem in which STI is operating. In that way, we'll be able to strengthen our systems. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Ellie. So we have 10 minutes, except if Moses and Julius do not agree. So thanks a lot for the presentation. They were really insightful. I will just go to the questions, and before asking 2 questions and then giving the voice to the audience, Dr. Kamau, do you know that $5 billion came as VC to Africa in 2021, breed-to-breed data? And I guess you also know that more than 60% goes to fintech. So can you give us some insight or your thoughts about how we can deviate part of this money towards a more, let's say, industry-oriented sector? Not saying that finance does not matter for industry, but how can we capture part of this money towards industry?
Yes, the green mic. So we're very much aware, particularly because our focus is on hardware and manufacturing startups, that you want to de-risk the opportunity. I think it's not actually on. Yeah.
We'll give you.
Thank you. I'm a tech person and I couldn't see that. Anyway, so the important thing for us, we spend a lot of time trying to see how can we de-risk these opportunities for the venture capitalists, because for venture capitalists, it's really about de-risking. And if they can see there's a clear pathway to the market, and you know, with hardware, there's many things that can go wrong. And so when a young company comes and presents an idea that involves making a product or an item, the venture capitalists tend to look at that as a problem, because it multiplies the number of ways things can go wrong. So that's the kind of thing that platforms like ours try to reduce. So by the time you've made a prototype, and then you've used that prototype to do a pilot in the marketplace, you have 10 customers, 50 customers, like we had such for a water irrigation system based on solar, also pay as you go. So a solar water pump for poor farmers, and they made 50, they raised the money to make 50, this particular company. They went to the rural area, they tested it with the 50 farmers, they found all the problems, came back, and were able to change the design to accommodate those problems. And now they can say to an investor, we're ready. We've foreseen all the problems. And that way, the venture capital will still come. In fact, only last week, we had a visit from a new fund in California called Eclipse. And they are specifically looking for hardware companies. They don't want to look at software-based companies. Of course, software is part of most hardware solutions, but that is their focus. So it's a very exciting thing to have that. And obviously, for a healthy economy, I'm not an economist, but it seems to me that it makes sense that you should, as a country, be able to make a respectable proportion of the goods you consume. So the fast-moving consumer goods and all kinds of other things, furniture, this and that. And so any policy should be trying to encourage that as much as possible. So I think also when you have government as a customer, which is, again, something that I'm really, we are with Jeff here, with Machine Africa, we're very focused on looking at government as a customer, including military. So we have military coming to us saying we want to build this. There's certain hardware they're buying from the West, and they're saying it's too expensive. Why can't we start to make these, whatever it might be, locally? And so we're helping them to do that as well. And military, as you all know, is very often the catalyst for very many technologies, including the internet and so on. So these are things I think African countries need to look at from a policy perspective, and to be very bold and say, you know, regardless of whatever say WTO rules are saying that you can't be protectionist. There is no country that has built an economy without protecting some of their fledgling economies. How do you start manufacturing and from day one you're more competitive than China or Germany? It cannot happen. You have to be protected through certain policies. So like for the manufacturing line, I showed the electronics. The government has come in and said, if anybody makes the circuit in country, they don't pay VAT. And VAT is 16%, which is very significant. So automatically, because of the policy support, now people are saying, oh, not only are we happy that this is happening in Kenya, which is not enough as a business decision. It has to make sense to the business. Actually, making it with you is cheaper, it's quicker, we can make changes on the fly. And so government support, I think, for all this hardware type of enterprise is critical. And that will bring in the de-risking that I was mentioning, going back to your question, and therefore venture capital will start to move away from just fintech and into hardware.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Kamau. I got that we should de-risk, but I also like the fact that you kind of implicitly mentioned the tech consciousness of the government within the ecosystem, but also the trust of the government, which allows also the setting up of prototype funding for some time. And it so resonates to me because we just completed a startup survey in Cote d'Ivoire, and we realized that most of the problem, either agri-tech or health tech or other like edutech or fintech, those young people were underlying the fact that they do not have fund for prototyping. Now we're moving the stage of the innovation value chain. So we need also the government to move this innovation value chain with us. Thanks a lot. So I have a question for Dr. Ellie. Are you online, still online?
Yes, I am.
Yes, okay. Dr. Ellie,
Yeah.
I was reading the latest UNESCO science report, and I was checking the different sections. So all of you here, you know that this science report is divided into geographical sections for Africa. And for each of the region of Africa, you could see how many of them has a STI policy or not, or when they did the STI policy. So Dr. Ellie, my question is a bit provocative. How do we integrate STI policy with other policies and even adopt a systemic approach in places where we do not have STI policy or where they have not been updating since more than 10 years?
So that is a very good question. In fact, if you go to Asian countries, you'll find that when they develop the STI policy, they already linked them with other policies, such as policies on trade, education, and so on. But what tends to happen in Africa is that we develop STI policies in isolation. It's only later that we are thinking, oh, the STI policy should also be addressing poverty or hunger or other social issues. And then we now try to link the STI policy, existing policy, with another policy. It's harder if you do that. So it is easier to develop it from the beginning, already linked with other policies. So what happens is that IDRC has been supporting actually STI development in some countries for a very long time, and it is only maybe the last 10 years that we've started to encourage countries to develop policies that are linked, not just STI alone, but STI for economic development, STI for social development, and STI that link to other policies, education, and so on. So it's a good point, and I think there's still opportunity even for countries that already have these policies to link them to other policies when they realize that the policies on STI do not function in isolation.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Ellie. You gave them a way out. So basically, if you are doing your education or your health policy, you should already think about the innovation component. Then, of course, by maturing, you will have a proper standing alone STI policy, which will be already integrated with the other STI policies. So I know it's a bit tricky, but that's what Dr. Ellie said. I think it makes a lot of sense, definitely.
It is important, and also you have to remember that that in our context, we also have some other indigenous knowledge and other frugal types of innovation that are not really based on R&D, and these are also important. So we need also to be cognizant of such innovations, and maybe even have policies that can encourage those types of innovations. If you go to Asia, that's what they do. I mean, you find a hospital, a formal, typical hospital here, and on the side you find traditional medicine. They are coexisting side by side. So there's nothing wrong with thinking along those lines as well. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. We could see this trend. Actually, I'm not a specialist in indigenous knowledge or technologies, but we could see clearly the trend also in West Africa, with more space for them with the dialogue with policy, with more space for them, also because they tend to organize in associations. So I would like to take 2 questions from the audience before we go toward the end of the session. So if anybody in the room has a question. Yes, one here. Can we have a mic, please? I have to.
Thank you very much. These are excellent presentations. I just have a question on the Innovation Hub. This is really popular in almost every country. People are talking about innovation hubs, but a lot of them are actually not very successful in it, but it seems like yours is. And I'm just wondering, you must have seen many types. What do you think is driving the success for your Innovation Hub versus the others we've seen in many other countries? Thank you.
So maybe just for the purposes of answering, I could divide them between the ones that focus on software, and like across the continent, there's so many now, I've lost count. There's probably close to 1,000 or more. And in Kenya alone, there's something on the order of 70 of them. And only ours, as far as I know. Maybe there may be a couple at universities, but independent hubs, only ours focuses on hardware. And in a way, that's actually more difficult. But then we had some very good partners from very early on, specifically the Lemuson Foundation that we've worked with from the beginning, who I was saying we're just running out of that funding. It's sort of taken its cycle, and now we're having to be self-sustaining. But I think really just leaving a lot of room for the innovators to innovate, to spend time on machines and on their issues, and also guiding them so that this thing that I talked about, the human-centered design, the design thinking, must be part of it, because if you don't have that, then the market fit for whatever the innovation may not be right. And so from the very start, that has to be part of it. And so that's one of the things that the hub should do. The other thing is to make sure that teams are formed correctly, because quite often, like in an engineering setting, you might find 3 students who are all mechanical engineers come up with a problem, a solution to a problem, they present it. And in fact, you're pretty sure quite early on that probably one of them or 2 have done all the work. And so the minute that there's some funding that comes in, they start fighting and say, oh, but so-and-so never does anything. He's just always sort of slacking and so on. So sort of helping them to create teams that make sense. And also, like we very often find, an engineer might not really be CEO material. He's probably not even sort of personality-wise a CEO. The ego wants to be the CEO, but we say, look, maybe you need to hire a CEO. And remember, you own the company, or you own the majority of the company. So the fact that you're the CTO and not the CEO shouldn't bother you. In fact, the minute you start CEOing, you're going to start hating your job, because you're looking at HR, you're looking at paying taxes and accounts, and you're not interested in those things. You want to do the tech. So, trying to help and guide those sorts of things. Where we've been weak ourselves is that we haven't had a fund to date. And we thought that we'd be able to partner with other existing funds. And that seemed to be a little bit difficult for us to get the right mix. And so now we're really focused on a micro VC fund that will be our own, that's kind of tailored to our own situation. So many of the funds in Africa actually come from outside of the continent. We haven't really been able to awaken local money significantly to the opportunities within tech. So most money goes to what is understood by the owner of the money. So real estate everybody's going into real estate and so on. They understand that better. They don't have to worry about the risks, but they don't understand sufficiently about tech. And so we're having to really educate and to show people, look, $5 billion is coming into the continent. The majority is not African. So when the money starts to be made, yes, some of it will stay with the locals, but many of the founders are not African either. So it's like a new, I don't want to say maybe it's too strong a term, but it's like a new colonization in a sense, because you're getting a lot of young people from outside who are very well trained to identify the market opportunity. They come from an ecosystem that they fully understand in terms of language, how to pitch and so on. So when one of the small African company is trying to pitch to a foreign venture capital firm, the pitching methodologies, they have to be trained to be able to look at the right problems and so on. And so they're answering the questions that the investor wants to answer. These guys from outside have already been trained. So you're finding that a lot of that money is actually going to foreign-owned startups. So these are issues. But just to go back to your point, I think if you, as a hub, are able to put into place the right structures, as I've just been describing, then the chances for success are much higher. And we're also finding a lot of interest in what we're doing. UNDP recently has come and said, we like your model. And so we're now pushing it through a program that they've started called Timbuktu, which is going to eventually cover 20 African countries that will have a hub very similar to Gearbox. We're helping them to design. In fact, we have a meeting tomorrow afternoon just to look at it, because by November, we start the first 10 of them. And they're funded at about $800,000 each, which is not bad. But of course, over time, as results are sort of presenting themselves, then more funding will be necessary to make it more. And then, of course, interacting is very important between countries. This is critical. The whole Airbus model, everybody talks about it. But look at what Ethiopia has in terms of METEC, the military-owned facility for car manufacture. They have the huge presses that can change sheet metal into the shape of the body of a car. That should be an East African or African resource. Instead of importing a fully assembled car, the cost for shipping is so much higher. And then, of course, the other parts of the car could also be designed. Rwanda has a battery company now, this and that. So these are things that we should also be looking at from a policy perspective, so that we don't have this race to the bottom where a company comes, invests in Kenya. Kenya says, look, you're going to have to pay this much tax, 30% corporate taxes and that. They say, oh, well, we're getting a tax holiday from Tanzania. So they go to Tanzania, and then Tanzania doesn't give them what they want, or at the end of the 10-year tax holiday, they jump to another country to get another tax. So you're not getting, if we don't sort of try to make uniform policy around investment as African countries, then our fragmentation then is going to be a curse. So these are things that we believe that partners like the UN, World Bank should be very instrumental in helping to push governments on the continent to think this way, so that we have the right type of environment.
Thanks a lot. I think this deserves a round of applause. Thanks a lot. So before closing the session, I would just like to remind, just to summarize, so you keep some key points in mind, drawing from your presentation. Please correct me afterward if I'm wrong, because we don't have much time. So I understood that the ability to make a prototype is key, and it determines the market ability. So this prototyping needs equipment, adequate materials, but also an environment for design thinking. That is key for automation, and if we want to embrace the Industry 4 revolution. On the makerspace, what I like is that it's a talent revealer, no? And you don't need a formal education to be a tech person. That is very important. But what is also important is that maybe you need the certification so that the ecosystem recognize your tech capabilities. And Dr. Kamau also insists on a dimension that are really important from the policy point of view. The two reminding the World Economic Forum framework that we also use with NEF colleague to write a chapter on the readiness of Industry 4.0. I'm doing my own advertisement. So it reminds the importance of the readiness diagnostic and remind the multi-dimensionality of the readiness for Industry 4.0 structured around both the structure of the production, so how complex are the things you are making, and also around the driver of this production. And just to come to Dr. Ellie key points about how to strengthen STI, African STI ecosystem for addressing the sustainable development goal, it was really clear. It's not only about making profit, it's not only about creating economic value, it's also about creating social value, shared social value, having a systemic approach on what you are doing in terms of designing and implementing policies. R&D driven innovation is key, but non-R&D driven innovation is more common. then you have to make the STI policies fit to your context. So it is a very simple thought, but it's true. Context matters. So the way you design the policies, the way you think about them, and the way you implement would have a very strong contextual component, even if you can learn from the others. So thanks a lot to Dr. Ellie, and thanks a lot to Dr. Kamau for the brilliant presentation. So the session is closed, but it happened that I'm also the one opening the next one. Okay, I've seen a sign like, means you can keep on. So we now move to the next session. So we are still in the thematic of the collaboration between the university and the industries. And I will have the pleasure to moderate the next session. You will have to remain awake this time for 1 hour and a half. So this session is about nurturing the collaboration between university and industry. And of course, we would like to have lessons from the PASET RSIF program that is going on, and that will hopefully go on for a long time, and to get also some best practices. So in a nutshell, we will address different points. The first would be what are the challenge and the opportunity at the, let's say, at the crossroad of university and industry. What are the potential and the lesson we could draw from the RSIF program, and how, of course, we could strengthen the partnership between the actor of the quadruple helix. So for this session, I will have the pleasure to welcome 4 panelists and also 2 high-level private sector experts, and I know one of them. She's really great, you'll see. So can I call the panelists? I don't know who is on site, but Professor Fulufhelo Nelwamondo from NRF South Africa. Is he online?
Yes, I'm around. I'm here.
Welcome, Professor. We are really happy to have you here.
Thank you.
On site, we will have, I think, Professor Murtala Sabo Sagaji. Welcome, Professor. You can join us. So Professor Murtala is from Dangote Business School, Bayero University in Kano, Nigeria, and it's a RSIF African Host University. You can welcome him with applause. It will make him come faster. Thank you, Professor. Please take your time. And we also have the pleasure to have Professor Azikiwe Peter Onwalu. Is he around or yes. Online? Oh, I'm okay, online. Sorry, I couldn't. Okay. Welcome, Professor. Professor is the acting president of the African University of Science and Technology from Nigeria, and is also a RSIF African Host University. Greeting, Professor, from Morocco. And the 4th panelist will be Mr. Gerard Den Hoeden, Program Manager, Science and Technology Expert at gopa.com.
I am online.
You are online. Okay, online. We can hear you. Welcome. And also we'll have the pleasure to welcome 2 experts from the private sector, Mr. Amadou Guzai from OCP Africa, also partnering the event. Not sure whether it's, you can come with us, please. Don't be shy. And also another expert of the private sector. She's CEO at Plot Enterprise Ltd, Ghana. And I will be welcome Mrs. Patricia Poku Diaby. Patricia, you can join us. Don't be shy too. I know you are not shy. But Patricia, you don't know, she's also in the Grant Independent Technical Committee, so the GTIC committee, the one also overviewing the evaluation of the great reviewers before final acceptance. Welcome, Patricia. Now that we have all the panelists and the experts from the private sector, we also have the pleasure to have a 5-minute presentation by Cynthia Orango, Grants Officer at RSIF-UM6P. Cynthia, are you with us?
Yes, I am Dr. Mafini.
Very good. So Cynthia, I leave you the floor for no more than 5 minutes. Thank you in advance.
All right, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share. I'll just be giving a very brief highlight of RSIF work and how we're trying to nurture university industry collaborations, and also to share our experiences, some of the lessons we've learned in this process, and the key lessons that we've learned, and of course, allow the experts to continue to discuss more on this topic. So quickly going into what I wanted to share today. So as RSIF, we recognize that in university industry, partnerships are very key to support innovation, just bring out innovation from the research work that is going on within the universities. And hence, we as the RSIF are using our competitive grant scheme through award of research. We give grants for research to faculty in the universities that we work with and the researchers in the universities that we work with, so that they're able to conduct research on relevant issues to Africa. We also give grants for innovation under the Window 3 of the design of the program. And mostly these grants for innovation are for commercialization of innovative ideas, preferably those which come from research work that the faculty and the researchers have done, and also just to help the universities that we are working with to strengthen their innovation ecosystem. So largely, I want to emphasize that collaboration with industry and international partners is a key design element in this competitive grant scheme. In the grants that we give to faculty for research, whether for research or innovation, particularly for research, we require that at least there is collaboration with international partners. This is so that we are able to facilitate or give an opportunity for cross-learning, between African institutions and those that are abroad. For innovation grants specifically, we encourage that they have industry partners as their key partners, especially those that are looking at commercializing. Can you have an industry partner in your area who will handhold you in this, or who will take up this innovation to market? And so, so far, we have given about 33 grants to the African universities that we have. And in this program, in the grants program, we have about 16 industrial partners, and most of these are small and medium enterprises. We note that within the African setup, it's now that the culture of supporting research is starting to grow, and it still needs to grow, especially for the small and medium enterprises. The multinational companies, most of them have already established R&D departments, and most of them are abroad in their headquarters. But luckily, we have some of those who have participated in the program and have agreed to collaborate with the faculty and researchers. Equally, we have about 32 international partners who have partnered with our researchers and faculty for joint research projects. So I just want to share from our experience some of the challenges we've noted as a program, as our faculty in the universities that we work with have been trying to work with industrial partners. And one of the key challenges that we've noted from the onset when we launched the calls and partners, and some of the faculty are trying to look for industrial partners, is the issue of the different languages. We note that industry, I think it's Dr. Kamau who mentioned that they come and they want solutions and quick solutions. And so you find that the formal processes that we have in the universities, or like when we do the call for proposals, those take some time. And these partners are not willing to really wait for that long time or engage in the formal administrative processes of signing MOUs and agreements before funding can come for them to be able to do joint work. And so there was a little bit of a challenge there, and some of the faculty were not able to really get partners to support in this joint research and innovation projects. But also, as we got on board, for those that were able to support and we are willing to support, then COVID came, and some of these small medium enterprises were really affected. And so the engagement during implementation for some has been low. Some you find closed, and they're not able to really continue providing that initial support that was anticipated. But also another issue that we noted is the issue of conceptualizing of innovation concepts by our faculty and researchers. They were not able to clearly identify what are the innovative ideas that can be commercialized from the research work that is going on, so that they're able to pitch this to the industrial partners for that collaboration to start. And so that was also a little bit of an issue, but also the issue of the IP policy environment within the institutions, and being able to agree between the university teams and the industrial teams. That was also a little bit of an issue for them to really come together and work. And so as I wind up, just to mention some of the key lessons that we've learned that really also helped us to shape or improve some of the processes and to better these collaborations. We learned that it's really flexibility in partnership arrangements is really necessary. And for us as standing from the donor perspective in terms of facilitating this process, we quickly had to look at flexibility in our call for proposals, what are the kind of rules that we are giving them to be able to make it easier for industry to collaborate. For example, we had requirements for matching funding, partially cash and in kind. And so we said, if you have an industrial partner who can come in and just willing to support in matching funding, that is okay. Documentation, especially at the point of forming that collaboration, make it as easy as possible. Don't request for as many documents from the industry partner, because they also have some sensitivity in sharing documents. So we just made it as easy as possible for them to collaborate. But the other thing we also noted is that this engagement with private sector takes time. And so this duration when we have open calls is not really enough for these two parties to gain trust unless it is organizations which have been dealing before in other projects. But within the duration of when we have the calls open, it might be not enough time for them to be able to just have that good discussion on what could be the joint process or items we could work on for the benefit of both parties. And so we've allowed our project teams to let the industry collaboration to evolve over time, even as they implement. Even if you don't have a project from an industrial partner from the onset, it is okay. Let's just have it in mind that you will need to work closely with an industrial partner and be able to perhaps, as you progress with your research work and you have some tangible results which you can use to convince industrial partners to support your work, then that would be good. But also at the bottom line of it is strengthening the capacity of our faculty and the researchers to be able to appreciate innovative concepts from their research work. How do you really identify what can move forward? How can you pitch what you have, the value add from your research work to attract your industrial partners? So that is something we've also been really working on to be able to facilitate those discussions. And so as
Thank
I want
to,
yeah.
Can we go
actually,
toward the end, please?
Yeah, I've actually finished. I just wanted to emphasize that yes, as RSIF, we recognize that this collaboration is key, and let me allow the panel to discuss further on this matter. Thank you, Dr. Mafini.
Thanks a lot, Cynthia. I wish we had you here. It's been 2 years we've been working with Cynthia. I've never seen her, so I'm not sure whether she's not AI driven or something. So thanks a lot, Cynthia, for giving us the insight from the from the PASET RSIF project, in which I also participated, and also Patricia Poku here with us. And I would like to go straight to our panelists, and I would ask you to give us your insight, general insight first, your take up on the subject, but also on the challenge that have been underlined by Cynthia during her presentation. So you can take 3 or 4 minutes to tell us about, also from your perspective, in your geographical context. So Professor Nelwamondo, and if I pronounce badly, please correct me, please. I'm from Côte d'Ivoire, so you know, it's not...
Thank you very much, Madam Program Director. I hope you can hear me.
Perfectly.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be very brief here, but I want to repeat what has been covered by the other speakers. I had the opportunity to listen to the previous panel, and I think Dr. Kamau and Dr. Ellie covered quite a number of issues that are very instrumental to this topic. Firstly, the fact that the STI systems that we have are weak and are not well integrated. I think that's a common cause. But what's very important is the point that Cynthia raised as well about how the collaboration takes time, how one can actually build trust, how one can actually work around mutual benefit between the collaboration. And this is something that's very critical. So I'm going to be very brief in terms of what I'm going to cover, but this is something that probably it requires much in-depth analysis. So we understand the fact that while we have the sustainable development goals, which are very good in terms of providing global guidelines for addressing challenges that are faced by modern society, attaining these goals requires clear policies and implementation pathways. It requires structural changes. It requires strategic investments in research and innovation and human capital development that will optimize the partnerships across different spheres, amongst others. This involves a wide range of processes, from government policy to research and innovation, to strategies, to industry participation. However, the key to successful implementing these goals is in understanding the dynamic interactions amongst different goals to ensure that progress that is made in some area is not done at the expense of the other areas. You have asked me to sort of look into the challenges, and I'll be very brief on this part. At present, we are aware of the low number of sustainable and impactful and mutually beneficial partnerships within the continent. This, in part, is because of a number of challenges that include the low investment in science, technology, and innovation at national levels, as well as weak public institutions that are central to the coordination and the disbursement of public finances. So the need to strengthen these public research institutions is fundamental, and I'm emphasizing the fundamentality of it in terms of catalyzing research and innovation across Africa. In this context, if I just use the example of the NRF, the National Research Foundation of South Africa, as a science granting council, we're investing in a multilateral cooperation, innovation, and a multimodal framework of engagement in jointly funding of research projects and shared infrastructure to increase the impact of funded research across the continent. So the issue is the following. If you think of this in this form, guided by the Sustainable Development Agenda, a well-developed and executed science, technology, and innovation strategy not only increases the impact and the attribution of research in the broader society, but the awareness of research impact over a long time. Awareness is something that's very important. So while critically important, STI alone will not help us achieve the SDGs. As much as I'm a scientist and I'll say STI is very good, we know for a fact that to actually achieve these, it will require the deployment of scientific inventions and innovations and technological solutions on a scale that will reach the target audience. So the key element is actually having the end user in mind from the beginning. To achieve this, it requires the use of a wide range of tools to navigate the complexity, the gaps, the opportunities in a science system, and set tangible priorities aligned to the SDGs and the national policies and strategies, and the increased partnerships. Some of the key principles that are required in the designing effective research strategies that respond to the SDGs include, among others, the development of partnerships, which are key. So many of the challenges that are facing the globe are common, requiring collective approaches. COVID was one of the examples that showed us that we can't do certain things alone. For example, I've mentioned the COVID, but there are many other issues. Climate change is another example that requires that shared understanding, that requires that shared approach between various entities. The Sustainable Development Agenda places on spotlight the strategic collaboration as a driver to effectively implement the SDGs. In most instances, these partnerships create strong coalitions and win-win alliances that can benefit from the combined resources, the combined flexibility, and the combined innovation. That's very important in my view. So effective partnerships, especially among science funders in the global north and the global south, is an essential element for achieving the sustainable development goals. It is through the mutual collaboration, the capacity building, and investment that we can achieve this mission. Furthermore, crucial to stimulating sustainable development collaboration is strengthened partnerships amongst public, private, and social actors. So I just want to touch something before I conclude here. So the SDGs, as we all know, they cut across many sectors, requiring multi and interdisciplinary approaches to address them. Approaches to setting research strategies must be built to guide countries along new alternative path of sustainability, anchored on the multi or interdisciplinary approaches. For instance, addressing climate change, as I've mentioned earlier, requires many interlinking systems, including food, health, energy, and education nexus to be addressed properly. The SDGs represent an opportunity to develop effective research strategies that offer an integrated approach, targeting an underlying connection and the trade-off among the SDGs. The other element is the academic-industry partnerships, academic being very important. But fostering the collaboration between academia and industry partnerships, including the private sector for that matter, is crucial in terms of attaining the SDGs. These academic industry partnership programs can increase the flow of information, the knowledge, the resource between academia and industry, as well as enhance the development of new skills and research outcomes that have direct economic linkages. Very, very important, economic linkages, because our publics will be asking us questions soon to then say, you are busy doing the research, but what is the benefit for me? I'm sitting here with hunger. What does that do to my hunger? So we must then be able to respond directly to the issues of a man on the ground. Science communication, I'm just going to conclude now, but science communication is a close issue as well, where we are saying most of the research has significant and direct, and perhaps indirect in some areas, socioeconomic impact, which results in skills development, which results in technological innovation that may be utilized by society. So it's a key aspect to make sure that we can actually communicate to a non-science-based person who's suffering from all the problems, to understand that science is being done to actually solve my problem. The partnership between university and industry and government is there to solve my main problems. Maybe in the interest of time, let me pause here and I will pick up a few issues during the questions. But this is something that's very, very important, and I think it makes more sense in actually making sure that everything is properly aligned to catalyze innovation and to ensure that it's not just innovation, but it's innovation that solves problems of the man or woman on the ground. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Professor Nelwamondo. So I trust I pronounced well because you did not.
I didn't complain because you did it very well. Your pronunciation is very good. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And without further ado, I would like also to give the word to Professor Murtala Sabo Sagaji. Yes. Can we have your insight?
Yeah, thank you very much. As the last speaker, I think, concluded, let me start from where he stopped. And from my own angle, I want to look at it from some of the areas where some of us can control, not necessarily far away, distant places that many of us may find it even frustrating. Let's start from us, the universities, even though in this hall there are people from the industry and other places, but university industry partnership. Most of our universities in Africa, I will be correct if I say that, still we have not graduated from our traditional roles. And what are our traditional roles? We research and publish, we get promoted. We teach, and most of our teaching is usually teacher-centered. We have not graduated from that. And community partnership is usually some of the consultancies we did and some of the appointments we took from the government and other places. That's traditional. Most places that generated knowledge, and they are right now trading that knowledge with us, and they're making billions out of this continent simply because they have invested in universities, and the universities have transited from those traditional roles into contemporary roles. And what are those contemporary roles that me and you can go back home, collaborate, and begin to change? We have to now begin to look at it from problem-solving perspective. The last presentation, the online from the Kenya, is all trying to show us that there are problems in Africa, these are our problems, and we can use our knowledge, we can use our local technology and expertise to solve. Where are the universities in that equation? It's very important. Number two, we need to see ourselves as partners in transferring knowledge. Right now, I don't need to score 1 point for transferring knowledge to anybody to get promoted. I will just publish my work, I will get promoted. So the incentives to share knowledge with the industry, with the small and medium enterprises, with these startups, it's perhaps non-existent in most of our institutions, especially the public universities. So this issue of the university research that will be focusing on problems, and at the same time, to take it upon ourselves to take initiative to exchange knowledge with the industry has to begin with us. And I think with this collaboration, with this association, there are things that we can do along this. Number two, there have to be some enablers. And of course, some of our colleagues have already mentioned the policy environment. It took nearly 3 years for African countries to sign up to African Continental Free Trade Agreements. That's a very good milestone, and we can use this to facilitate some of this disaggregation and some of these policy inconsistencies across different sectors. And I'm sure when we get there, we can cross the bridge. The second issue is that, unlike somebody mentioned something, I tried to get his name, that there's hardly any country in the world that has just left its economy open. Agriculture is open, services open, just come and do whatever you want. There are some elements of, I don't want to call it protection, but there are some elements of support that you give to the industries. Take Korea, for example. They have this strict local context policy, which many African countries are not taking it into consideration. We have policies that you can come and set off your facilities, you can bring expatriates, you can bring technology. So what about using local knowledge? What about using local skills? What about using local resources? Many African countries do not have policies on local content. Even if they do, you'll find out that the implementation or the monitoring of that policy is very, very weak. So we need to really focus on this at the policy level so that we can get incentives. And then, but of course, we also know that most of the companies that could really fund research and development in Africa are mostly multinationals. And usually multinationals, they benefit from the research in some of the big MIT laboratories and stuff like that. So if one university from Tanzania or Nigeria said we have something, they may not necessarily look at you because they are relying, they are funding most of those researchers. So I think from that policy perspective, we need to incentivize the universities to act accordingly. And of course, private sector. The communication between university and private sector is very, very weak. And I think we need to do something about this. One thing from my experience is that it's easier for the universities to reach out to the private sector than the private sector to reach out to the university. I don't know, we have this aura and cloud that hardly does most private sector want to really approach universities. So we really need to have technology transfer offices. We need to have incubation centers. We need to have technology park and stuff like that, so that through some of these offices and facilities, we can start reaching out to the private sector. Finally, I will say this. In Nigeria, we have noticed some of this, and I'm glad to share this because Nigeria, 200 million people, and with most of the challenges that most African countries have, now we're beginning to realize that for the first time, agriculture is the most important economy to most countries in Africa, with the exception of few. But there was never a time in the history of our country where we use technology and innovation as a bedrock for transforming agriculture until recently. Ourselves and Center for Dryland Agriculture, which is really your partners, we are the university partners, and we mobilize private sector, we mobilize development partners. That's why we're talking about this triple helix plus, you know, and for the first time in Nigeria now, we have a new agricultural policy called NATIP, National Agricultural Technology and Innovation Plan. It has just been approved by the Federal Executive Council about 3-4 weeks ago, and very soon is going to be launched. And we are just in the process to set up the implementation plan. And part of it is all the issues we are talking about, injecting technology into agriculture, bringing innovation, extension, and what have you, to make sure we transform Africa to look similar to what we are seeing in livestock in Netherlands, to what we are seeing in production in the United States. Let's bring it to Africa. And I believe we can do that if we do what we are expected to do using this kind of platforms. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Professor Sagagi. So we will take also another opinion from Nigeria to proof check what you just said. Can we have the point of view, the insight from Professor Onwalu, if I pronounce well?
Yes, that's good enough. Yeah, thank you. I will just continue from where my colleagues stopped. The issue of university-industry collaboration is really a major issue for us as academics and as administrators. And I would like to also indicate that, of course, when we are talking about university-industry collaboration, we are actually talking about academia-industry collaboration. For a country like Nigeria, we really have, in terms of numbers, a very robust system where we have over 170 universities, and at the same time, about the same number of polytechnics, colleges of education. All these make up the academia. Now, if you add that to about the same number of research institutes in different ministries in the country. In the Ministry of Agriculture, for example, we have about 20 research institutes. Same in Ministry of Science and Technology, and so on. And all these research institutes, some of them are embedded in universities, some of them are standing on their own. So one would have thought that with this robustness in terms of numbers, with this robust academia, you would expect that most of the innovations that the industries we should be using in Nigeria should come from within the Nigerian system. But unfortunately, this has not happened, as some of my colleagues have noted. Again, if you look at that sector, that is the industrial sector, again, Nigeria is robust in the sense that there are quite a large number of industrial clusters in different parts of the country. Mostly in the southwest, then southeastern part, and of course, even in the northern part of the country. In addition to these large-scale industries, we have another large number of SMEs producing. But the problem or the situation is that this collaboration between the knowledge centers, the academia, and industry is really, really very, very weak. And there are many reasons for this. This is something that has happened over the years. Like some people will tell you, most of the large-scale industries came in as multinationals. And so the issue of R&D doesn't concern them. They do that in their home base, home countries. And then the SMEs that are even more in number are doing their own thing. And then the universities are there, the institutes are there, the so-called ivory tower. Even my university, for example, I had this joke yesterday with some people, and I asked my staff, how many times have we really gone beyond the walls of this university to see what is going on, the SME sector that is just behind us? So this is a problem, and we've identified, and there are many reasons. Of course, my colleague, as I mentioned this, the issue of we are here as academics, and most times our progress depends on publications and so on. Even the people we train in our university here for our PhD, for example, we take pride to say that you must publish at least 2 papers in Scopus Index Journal before you get your PhD. So even some of our RSIF scholars, not some of them, all of them, when they come in as PhD students, all they're battling with is how to publish. And once they get their publications and do their projects, they go. So the innovation aspect is missing. And I think everybody has realized this because all the problems are there. In Nigeria, for example, we have infrastructure problems, we have policy somersaults, we have manufacturing sector is dying. Of recent, we are battling with insecurity. People are kidnapped and killed almost on a daily basis. These are problems that are looking for solutions. And yet, we're there as academics, not addressing these problems. However, I must say that this weakness is actually being addressed. I think everybody is beginning to realize this. For example, we have an institution in Nigeria called TED Fund. TED Fund is the Tertiary Education Trust Fund that gives research grants to universities and so on. I happen to be a member of the research grant committee for that body. And one of the things we have said is before you can win a grant from this organization, you should be able to have a team of a researcher, somebody from industry, not just somebody for only research team. So we try to encourage them. If you have your research team made up of people from your university and from another institution, maybe a research institute, and then from industry. And the idea is that the industry partner in that project will be bringing industry problem for you to solve. Now, if you have that, you will score high marks and hopefully you will get a grant. So I believe that government is looking into this and trying to implement this. Of course, we need to do more. I'm sure you are aware of the Centers of Excellence. In my university, in S1, the Africa Center of Excellence, which is a World Bank project. Even in that, this has been encouraged in such a way that people are encouraged to look for solutions to practical problems, not just problems for publishing papers and so on. So I think we need to do more, and that is where PASET comes in. In my university, for example, with the little grant we got from PASET, we have just established an innovation hub we call AUST Inspire. And we've done quite a bit, looking at the policy environment, doing entrepreneurship boot camps. And one of the things this program has helped us to do is this hub is running up and running now. And now we run short courses directly with industries. We've just established an industry advisory board, which is made up of a number of industries that will be meeting every quarter on our campus, either virtually or physically. And we've also done a lot of work in terms of revising our innovation policies and technology policies, technology transfer policies, and so on. Of course, we've also succeeded in attracting the attention of Africa Development Bank. In fact, they've just given us a consultant to help us because really we don't know it as academics. So in the next 6 months, we are going to have a hub. This hub is called a co-creation hub based in Lagos. They will be on our campus to help us to begin to work on how to engage industries and how to begin to innovate through this AUST Inspire. So I think what is happening is that most academics now realize that we cannot just be doing only publications. We have to also go to the side of innovation. But it's a lot of problems and it needs a lot of funding. But we have to also learn how to look for the money so that we'll be able to run this. I think I will stop here so far. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Professor. Thank you very much for complementing what the others just mentioned. I would like to also call upon Gerard Den Uden. Are you still connected? Very good. Welcome. We would like your take on the topic.
The topic, Mafini, which topic is it?
I can hear.
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's
is
a bit
the line
breaking
okay?
up.
I will put on my headphones. It's always like this. I hope you.
Okay, I think we lost him, right? Yes. Okay. I will not try to summarize what the panelists just say. And meanwhile, I hope we get back Gerard Uden, who is a program manager at GOPACOM. And meanwhile, I would like to come back, and I know it was not the original setting, but I mean, I have the impression that academics has a lot to say about what academia and industry can do together. And so I would like Patricia, Mrs. Poku, I would like you to tell us, what do you think about, I mean, they seem to have all the solutions. So what is the problem? Is that the industry sector, or from your point of view? And you can tell people again what your firm is doing, and I know it, but and where you're based, and they will know more about you.
Okay, thank you. First of all, my thanks to the panel for their incisive contribution. By way of introduction, Plot Enterprise Ghana Limited and Plot Enterprise SA are cocoa processing facilities based in Takoradi, Ghana, and in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, respectively. So we process cocoa beans into semi-finished products, cocoa liquor or mass, cocoa butter, and cake. Speaking to the issue of collaboration between industry and universities, our activities so far has been at the tertiary level, where we have opened our doors to placements for growth and development by the tertiary student. Some of them have gone on to enjoy employment with us. We at Plot are therefore happy to put our facility forward to receive or collaborate in diverse ways with a PhD scholar who is ready to contribute to the growth and improvement of our process or the cocoa industry in general. This drives me to say, reflecting on our process and operations in general, that expertise, real and vital, exists with the skills set of the PhD or the scholar, and industry will do well to gives significant support towards unleashing our potential of the human resources by creating opportunities for them to exercise their research and problem-solving skills, among other meaningful form of support. Ongoing experience shows that the scholar has immense wealth of knowledge to share and to guide technical processes for enhanced production. As a result of the academic program, their research, combined with their research and the potential to innovate. But however, the scholar, if during the technical process, is also a practitioner, there'll be more to be achieved, and vice versa. For example, the practitioner in the technical process would develop interest in academia, especially in the area of expertise or study. I would say that the African industry has a lot to gain, and we should tap within our own stock of knowledgeable professionals. And the surest way is a solid partnership between universities, scholars, and industry, private sector. A typical example is in cocoa harvesting. To date, from time immemorial, the cocoa pods are harvested manually by splitting the pods. And mind you, Africa produces about 80% of world cocoa. To get about a ton of cocoa, you need to split about 20,000 pods. So you can imagine the workload involved. China recently started growing cocoa, and already they have devised a mechanism to split the pods. So I believe these are some of the areas our scholars could research on and innovate to contribute their quota to the industry. Plot Ghana can boast of partnering with a cocoa product tempering machine manufacturer to modify the machine design based on an innovative idea mooted by Plot. So this was made possible through collaboration by the practitioner, which is us, and the engineers of the tempering machine manufacturer. And more of such innovations could be spearheaded and grown for the benefit of all. So sustainability of industry is firmly rooted in the improved commitment, in the commitment to improve what we call the triple bottom line strategy. The scholar acquires, and the knowledge the scholar acquires would bring much value to the table, whereby they could guide businesses to develop an improved and sustainable way for their businesses, for their developmental projects. I mean, we all know, and there's a saying that investment in knowledge pays the best interest. So in conclusion, I would say that collaboration between the universities, scholars, and industry, private sector is of essence if this has to translate effectively in addressing the continent's priority issues. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Patricia. Thanks a lot, Mrs. Poku. There are good cases, of course, of industry and university collaboration. But before coming to the issue of sustainability and scalability, I would like to give again the floor to Gerard. Then, can you hear us?
I can hear you. I can hear you now, yes. Do you hear me?
Now we get you perfectly. The floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, there are some internet connectivities. I'm calling in from Cape Coast, Ghana. I will be very short because I've seen that every speaker is taking his time to, of course, explain whatever he or she's got to say. I'll try to be very brief. And of course, you've asked me to elaborate a little bit on the role of international organizations relating to the academia industry partnerships. And of course, this is for many international organizations, and per definition, many of those international organizations are donor agencies. And if you look at those donor agencies, and I happen to work for one of them, we can see that this element, of course, is of enormous interest. And what you do see at the policy level of the donor organizations as ours, we are trying, and I repeat, we are trying to look at what is happening in practice, in reality. And every donor organization has got its own perspectives. They have their own priorities. They have their own set of eligibility criteria, which is not always very helpful for those who are liking to ask for a grant. Look at yourself, people from the academia and people from the industry. It is absolutely not easy. It is a jungle of different policy views, a jungle of different eligibility criteria, and it is not easy to understand all this. Well, it is true. And of course, you're talking about the ecosystem. This is a beautiful word you're using now. That's also within this ecosystem, an whole ecosystem agendas. And you should understand how these agendas are being set. They're being set through the base of many, many different types of baseline surveys, of interviews, of trying to figure out what's going on in the field. They ask some people, they set up a policy document. This is being agreed upon, and then a program rolls out of the machinery of these international organizations, and there are call for proposals and guidelines, etc. What we do see, however, is that in the delivery process of writing these policy papers for the donor organizations, there's not a lot of intake or lobbying from your side. And I think I should use this word lobbying, because you are the people who knows what is going on in the field. It is not the bureaucrats from the donor organization that do have this knowledge. Sometimes they think they do have it, but they don't always do it. So there is a need for shouting from the field. You should wake up the donor agencies through your own connections, left and right. I think it's important, because quite often what we do see, and why I'm saying this, is quite often when we do see proposals being submitted, that a very small minority is accepting is respecting the eligibility criteria, and they do understand what is happening or what should be happening or how the proposal should be written. Whilst the majority of the proposals we receive, they fall out of the context. And then we ask ourselves, why is this? Is it that our language, I mean the donor language, has not been clear enough? This could be one question. Another thing is it because many of the partners, especially when we are asking for partnerships between various organizations, is it that they do not understand what it means to produce their ideas in such a way that it can be read by the assessors of donor agencies? And I can keep on asking many of these questions, but we do see a clear mismatch. A mismatch between ideas of partnerships and a mismatch between the eligibility criteria, or even, if you would like, the policy support or the policy ingredients of the donor agency. When you look, for example, nowadays at many of these international organizations, yes, they do have, especially in the start of this millennium, they have a go for partnerships, where they do believe that it is not good to only work with one beneficiary group, as they call it, or one target group, for example, being a support to universities, or being a support to NGOs, or being a support to local communities. Now, we have understood that it's important that we should grant parties who can work together, the collaborationships, the partnerships. And when you look in this context of academia and the industry, yes, we do believe that it is a beautiful thing to happen. You should work together. But then if, for example, we are able to finance these type of constructions, we also see a lot of problems, practical problems, is that within a partnership, quite often a proposal is being formulated, is being submitted, but is not completely well designed. And you know very well what I'm talking about, which means that in the execution of the project, we see all kinds of sometimes confrontations or misunderstandings. And that we recognize in the reporting people send to us. We recognize it also in the evaluation of these projects. And then if you then look back, many donor organizations saying, why have we then started all this program with all the support to these wonderful ideas? Why is the impact so low? And so we are learning a lot. Maybe we are not always as donor organizations sharing our knowledge to you, but thanks God that you are organizing this conference, so we are also able to ventilate a little bit of our concerns. And I do believe, and of course we do have one of the speakers in the previous session who is very aware of the situation. Dr. Kamau knows very well how it is to collaborate between the industry and academia. And he knows the hurdles, but now he's talking from the industrial point of view. This is very important, but it is not all. It is a good example, but we should also learn from the less good practices. And it's especially from the less good practices that we can take stock. In many of the proposals or the work we are seeing that are being executed between academia and industry, I think it's important more than before that you look far beyond the end of your project time zone. When you have a project, you're working together, and for example, it finishes in 4 years, I think you should look ahead 5-10 years. What will have been done with the results? Because a lot of money is being spent by donor agencies. And if you look at all the evaluation reports, including of the OECD, is that the effect of a lot of this support has been evaporated. And that's a pity, isn't it? Well, there's so much to do, but what we are missing, what you can call a short-sighted from the donor point of view, because quite often we have a program for a couple of years and then we stop or now the program is arriving, but there's also a short-sighted view, a perspective from your side, from people who implement the projects. You should have the possibility, relationships, you look, even if you're working between an industry and the university, look ahead, have a vision. And when you have a project, apply impact management. How can we manage the impact? This is what I call an impact management plan. Make it, look far ahead and then look back. How can we now deliver the best collaboration together? Because the brains are at the university, the brains are also at academia. And it is this combination that should be put together to service who? Indeed, to service those who you are working for. Those are the end users. But the end user of your program, they, of course, they have an impact on other users. And you may call them in our jargon, it's the donor jargon, we call them final beneficiaries. Well, those final beneficiaries are not only those who are there to profit from your results after your projects come to an end. No, it's far beyond that. So this is an advice to you people, and you can talk and think about it, but this is what we need. And this is what we would like you to look at. And if you're talking also about the policies, you talk STI policies, there are also something like R&I policies, the research and innovation. This is just saying the same, but just putting it in another container. It's all about using the knowledge. And when you talk about innovation, we know very well there are various levels of innovation. It's not only the technological innovation, which has been highlighted by Kamau, there are also other innovations, which are the social or organizational innovations, how to improve the working together. But there are also business innovations. How can you improve a process with industry or a process within an organization? And there is this learning innovation. How can we improve our learning in order to apply better the things we are learning and we have to practice? In other words, if you combine all those four axes of innovation, you are bound to work with not only the academia and the industry, you have to look wider. You have to look and go and work with the full ecosystems. People within the agriculture sector.
Mr. Uden, thank you. Could you go to the conclusion, please?
Conclusion, what I was trying to say is that it is not only enough to look at the partnerships between academia and industry, but try to embed the full actors within the sector in which you're working. Look wider and embed them, include them in your work. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. And then I would like to thanks again, Mr. Guzai, for your very patience on the scene. And for those who do not know him, is representing OCP Africa, which is also partnering of the event. So we would like also to have your take from the private sector on the challenge of shaping and sustaining university-industry relationships.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mafini. And I will start really by congratulating these panelists for really the ideas, brilliant ideas, I would say, that they have shared with us. And also, I think the point of view from Patricia from the private sector. From the different talk, I think I have kept 2 points that are really, from my point of view, very important. From the research perspective, people should keep in mind really that the research output should be ultimately shared with the general public, and usually I do believe that it would end up in the private sector. If I take my area of expertise or my daily life is agriculture, usually we want the research output in agricultural sector to end up in the farmer's hand. And this is where our research sector are not doing that very, very good job. And typically in Africa, because of the failure of the extension services. Dr. Murtala has mentioned it. If you look at our extension services, and there's one problem also, that the extension services are not in the hands of the universities. Usually, if you take our countries, extensions are handled by the ministries, and the ministries are not part of the universities, a whole different setting. So I think there is a lot to be done on that area to share knowledge. If I take over other sector, like this morning also, we have seen Dr. Kamau with his technology, which is really very good, this technology hub, where he called people, he's not going them, but he called them to come in, to come to his lab, to his hub, to learn something that they are developing. So I think that's really very, very important point. Now, most of the talk have talked about difficulties in partnership with private sector. I think the last speaker has talked about looking at the whole ecosystem. If you are looking to partner with a large company that is able to fund your research, you really need to look to take your project from end to end, from its conceptualization to its scalability. Do not stop at publishing, because if you just publish, the project would end there. So the private sector will not be interested in that. You need to frame it in a whole holistic way, looking at who would be the buyer of this product if I develop it, who should I partner with, and so on and so on. So I think that's the way we could attract more private sector partnership within our universities. So this is what I would say, Dr. Mafini. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I don't want to say it, but I will say it. In private sector is most efficient than universities. So they go straight to the point, no? And we take more time to think. So to criticize myself, I put myself in the university side. So thanks a lot to all the panelists. And I know I've been one that we have only 10 minutes, but I disagree, because normally we have up to 55. So I would like, please, each panelist to go straight to the point and give me 2 points only regarding how they think we can make, for example, RSIF or what Dr. Kamau is doing in Gearbox sustainable and scalable at the African scale. 2 points. Let's think like the private sector. So I will start again by the first speaker from the CEO of the National Research Foundation, South Africa, Professor Nelwamondo. Sustainability of the university-industry relationship in 2 points.
Can I just ask you to skip me for now? I'm just saving a technical issue, then I'll just come back afterwards.
Okay, so we go straight to Professor Sagaji, 2 points for sustainability, or you can call it success factors if you want.
No problem. I think there is already something that is happening, which is many universities are now trying to have entrepreneurship centers. So I think collaborating with entrepreneurship center, depending on how the university is looking at it. Some universities are looking at it from high tech, some from real processes, some from many, many dimensions. So I think if this initiative can key into this entrepreneurship agenda of, I know Nigeria, Ghana, Niger Republic, I don't know most other countries around, but I know that a number of the conferences I've attended, a number of African countries are very much interested in entrepreneurship. And through that entrepreneurship agenda, we can now be able to forge a lot of collaboration and a lot of partnership. That is from the university aspect. From the private sector aspect, I think you need to also do more to partner with some of the private sector hubs, like some of these business membership organizations. In Nigeria, we have Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. We have Chambers of Commerce. That linking with them will fast track movement and also collaboration with a number of the private sector organizations. You already said 2 points and I've already given 2. Thank you.
You gave 4 and 2. You are academic, we know. Can I have 2 points from Professor Onwalu, if he's connected? No. Professor Nelwamondo?
Yes,
okay.
I'm connected.
You can go on. You have
okay.
2 points on the sustainability of university-industry relationship, 2 points in the private sector mindset.
Okay, 2 points. Number one is that both the university and the private sector organizations, they need to build their capacity. The assumption usually is that we know it all, but you need to build your capacity through training and interaction, between both parties so that they can understand how each mindset works. Number 2 is the private sector organizations, the industries, they need some incentives for this thing to be scalable and sustainable. These incentives can come in terms of maybe tax rebates, or in terms of funding from government to, because they are there to make profit. And so for them to leave what they are doing to get engaged with industry, they need to find ways, apart from the profit motive, there has to be something put in place for them to be able to recoup from the time they are going to waste and the energy and everything, and to also improve their production. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Professor Onwalu. You see, we're already getting closer in terms of timing and between academia and university, and incredible things are happening in Morocco. Can we have also the 2 points from the CEO of the NRF?
Thank you very much. Let me just check if you can hear me again.
Yes, and we can see you.
Oh, and you can see me. That's fine. Thank you. I'll be very brief here again, and I won't repeat what my colleagues have said, but I fully agree with the points that have been raised. What is critical, and you're saying 2 points, and I'll just give you just 2. So the first one, in addition to what has been said, is that we need to find a way of being able to communicate that the science that we are doing, the science that we are funding, the science that we are addressing within the universities is relevant to industry. But that element requires that kind of aspect to where we should then be able to demonstrate how this whole science that we are doing, the partnership that we're actually forming, will be able to address issues of HIV and AIDS, will build houses, will assist in creating issues of, rather solving issues of potable water and cheaper energy and eradicating poverty. That is the only way that it becomes easier even for industry to then prove to the general public that the partnership is of relevance. So that's one. The second one is that in addition to the position of funding science or doing science from universities, it's important for us to then be able to influence or to show the influence that we have on government, on the policies, and ensuring that the research performing entities and the private sector are working together to grow and expand the collaboration for the increased impact. The word impact has been raised earlier, and I'm saying we have to demonstrate impact. Without demonstrating that impact, sustainability of this partnership is not going to be maintained. It's not going to be achieved. So it's very important to demonstrate the impact. And this can only be done through well-developed and implemented strategies. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. And our last panelist, Gerard Den Hoeden, 2 points. Okay, if he's not connected, we'll go straight to the private sector. We ask a great effort from the academia. So you have to do a bit more. So you have 1 point each about the sustainability from your side or scalability.
I think if I'm to come with 1 point that would really maintain the sustainability of research, would be probably the economic aspect of the innovation. So if you are working with the private sector, think about the cost of the innovation that you are going to come up, what it will take in terms of return on investment, and maybe payback period. If I invest as a private sector into a research project of 5 years, after these 5 years, I have the outcome, how much time it will make from. It's something that, and usually I think that researchers do that, but in some mainly engineering people, they tend to forget the economic aspect, and they end up with solutions that are not scalable, and still scalability come into account from the economic side. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Poku, you have almost the last word.
Yes, I'll pick up what the Director General said this morning. She talked about partnership being like marriage. I think for it to be sustainable, the interests should be aligned. The objective should be common. Otherwise, it won't work.
Thanks a lot. Okay, university has a lot still to learn from, and I'm an academic, so I will not try to sum up all the discussion we had now, but just if 1 or 2 sentences or keyword I think we should keep in mind. Patricia, I like really what you said about, and I transform it and I put it in, I think it's the mutual duality is key from the academic and the industry to sustain and scale up the collaboration. And I think something else which is very important, and where I'm working at the Commission, we do a lot of science communication. And I think also Amadou underlined this, that science communication, communicating about our results is not only publishing, is also reshape the results we have so that they are accessible for people that are non-technical and non-scientific and sometimes mostly political people. And the other panelists also underlined that we have to demonstrate the impact. So it's also about the concreteness of the research we are doing in terms of addressing market and industry and social development issues. And as another panelist underlined that it is important, and I like this, it was Professor Sagagi underlined that the entrepreneurial agenda of university also demonstrates the path toward strengthening this kind of collaboration. So the embeddedness is dual in the sense that university will embed the entrepreneurship center and program, but industry will also embed through the hubs the let's say the academics and the industry. All of this to fast track our pathway toward achieving the sustainable development. And importantly, and I think we could close by this point is it's about capability building, and it's not only about talking to each other, but it's about accepting that we may not be so ready to understand what is going on in industry and vice versa. So capability building from both sides is very, very important. And the government in all of this, they should provide both the incentives, of course, related to profit making, like taxes related, but also broader incentives for the industry to maintain and to sustain these partnerships once the support is withdrawn from the equation. So on this point, I would like to thank many thanks to all the panelists and the private sector representative, and I think they deserve more than a round of applause. Thank you. I let the... You are free. Thank you very, very much. I am free also. Thank you. Thanks.
Another round of applause for that panel. We can do better. Awesome. Thank you so much. So we will proceed to the much needed break and tea break for those who are here in Morocco. I would like to take the opportunity to cut the length of the tea break that is provided, and thank you for your understanding. Let's do 20 minutes. Originally, a bit more time was allocated. So 20 minutes, the tea is served in the usual place. And I will also request the speakers of the next session, who are the RSI scholars, they know themselves, to also be fast with the tea and to come back as soon as possible. Otherwise, I think you enjoy the tea break.
I'm Numfo Linda B, a Cameroonian, a PhD student here in NMIST under the RSIF-UM6P PASET scholarship. It is very interesting given to the fact that it's Nelson Mandela's vision. So when you look at the environment, you know the Mandela's vision is actually coming to pass. To find funding for my PhD wasn't easy. Then I came in contact with RSIF-UM6P PASET, the scholarship that was advertised. So I applied the first time. I actually didn't make it the first time. And I told myself, I am going in the second time, so I got it the second time. I believe that this partnership will foster the growth of research in Africa. My research is on synthesis and comparative analysis of activated carbon from different biomass waste for heavy metal removers. And at the end of my research, I am aiming to produce a prototype that the industries can use for the removal of these heavy metals. Africa is fast growing and many industries are coming into Africa. So we need to embrace and accept and be ready for the growth of industries in Africa. So we need to prepare something. It is very, very important for these heavy metals to be removed before this wastewater is dumped into the environment. Amongst that, RSIF-UM6P PASET scholarship is there to encourage the students, the researchers, to be great scientists so that it can increase the knowledge, the science in Africa, the engineering, in solving our own local problems. This scholarship is like a blessing to me. It's so unique in that they consider women. What I would say to other female scientists in Africa is that they should believe in themselves. Just like my mother told me, don't be discouraged. Always go in for what you want in your life. Life is always on a cycle and things are always improving. If you stick to something, then you will get it at the end.
My name is Thomas Kivevele. I'm trained as an electromechanical engineer, and I work research on energy areas, especially on solar energy applications, bioenergy systems. This project that is supported by RSIF, we call PASET RSIF project, is on the solar assisted heat pump dryer integrated with the energy storage systems. As you know, we have issues with the post-harvest loss. So we are coming out with a novel technology to prolong the storage of that products, especially vegetables and the fruits. We are trying to address our own African problems. This is directly touching our community. Having a scholarship and the projects funded by RSIF is very good for Africa. We have a very active team, especially from the headquarters. The biggest dream is to see many of these African scientists are working on science and technology, addressing the daily problems that are facing Africa.
Thank you. For this next session, I will now introduce the moderator, Professor Abdallah Okuraun, and he is a professor in this university, UM6P, and a plant physiologist, has research interests in the function of plasticity of plants under stress, and he is leading a research group here at UM6P that focuses on adaptation and acclimation responses of plant to environmental stress. He also occupies the position of the director of the School of Agriculture, Fertilization and Environmental Sciences, acronymed ESAFE, here at UM6P. Ladies and gentlemen, Professor Abdallah. Do you have Professor Abdallah? Okay. We will move on and we will call upon Dr. Evelyn Nguku. He's our capacity building specialist at RSIF at ICIPE in Nairobi, and she will proceed to come and give some remarks. Dr. Nguku, over to you.
All right, good evening, everybody. I know we are all very tired. It's been a very long day. So I will just quickly take us through the RSIF program model so that we are all very familiar with it as we are looking forward to the presentation by the scholars who are coming, which will be quite exciting. So that even as they present, you all know where they're coming from, the journey that they have walked through and how they got to where they are. So I will quickly take us through just some slides just to show us where the RSIF program is at and what we've been able to achieve. All right, from the presenters in the morning, there's a lot of implied, the model has been implied by most of the presenters in the morning. So I will just go to the critical areas, and we all are quite familiar with the RSIF program right now, and our main key objective is where we're looking at sustainable doctoral programs and also having a skilled, should I say, scholars that are skilled in the applied sciences, engineering, and technology. And also we're looking at being able to have capacity building for the universities. It does not help for us to have skilled scholars, and we do not have faculty that have the capacity to be able to take this through. Then also most important is the area of partnership. And this is quite strategic partnership where we look at having international partners who collaborate with us within our program. And our scholars not only study at the universities, they also do go to these international partner institutions to what we call the sandwich program. So just to take us through, we have the 5 thematic areas that are embedded within the applied sciences, engineering, and technology. And there's a lot of conversations that have already been undertaken earlier today within the ICT, and big data, artificial intelligence, and there's been quite some interesting conversations. Then we do have the food security and agribusiness. And in Africa, I think food security is one of the issues that have been discussed all over, and it's one of the gaping gaps that we actually do need to address. Then thirdly, we know Africa has countries that have minerals and quite rich in minerals. So it is important for us also to have personnel who are skilled in minerals, mining, and when you look at material engineering. Then of course, energy, it's one of the prevailing areas in Africa that requires to be addressed. And then of course, climate change, which is a global issue. So these are the 5 thematic areas where our scholars do undertake their PhD studies in. When we look at our model, we like to describe it, it's like a clear transition where we get a scholar and they're able to transit through the process into employment. And it comes from an area where the selection is done from really quite well-deserving scholars. By the time you're an RSIF scholar, you deserve that scholarship. You're quite articulating what it is that you're doing. You've got a clear understanding of your research area. Then, of course, you're paired with mentors. The scholars who are undertaking this program have got mentors who are capable of taking them through their studies. And then, of course, there's a training that is quite, wholesome, where the scholar is able to do not only the units within the university and also be able to engage with the international partners. At the RSIF, we've got a capacity building program where we also do take them through certain critical courses, entrepreneurship being one of them. I think the speakers who talked about the science, communication, research methods. So by the time they complete, they're actually quite well-rounded. It does not end there. We also do have grants in one of our programs that are able to enable the scholars to re-enter once they finish their PhD and do like what we call a postdoc under the Junior Investigator Grants Award. And, they're able to initiate their careers as they start off as, young scientists. And then there's capacity building, entrepreneurship skills. We had one that we completed last week for the scholars, which was quite wholesome. Then, of course, we have commercialization of some of these innovations that they're undertaking. And as it has been discussed earlier today, our research does not just end up in shelves. We're able to move this out and be able to commercialize this together alongside with the partner institutions. And this is being undertaken by the host universities and these partners together to be able to move this research. Just to give you an idea how the scholars get to where they are, and to date, it's a highly quite competitive selection process. To date, we have over 250 scholars that have been awarded this RSIF scholarship. And they have been in 4 cohorts, and the last cohort that we brought on board in 2022, and they're still onboarding into the universities, we had about over 1,900 applications, and out of these, only 74 were selected. So you can imagine the process it takes for us to be able to narrow down to these scholarships. It's almost a 6-step review process. We have the universities who do the critical reviews and shortlisting. It goes to expert reviewers who look at the content of what the scholars have, the applicants have submitted. It goes to another evaluation committee that further looks at these documents. By the time it goes to the PASET executive board, we've already sifted through quite a number of applications. It's gone through quite some stringent reviews. So that is what it takes for one to be awarded this scholarship, those 6 steps that you see there. Then once the scholarships have been awarded, the scholars now report to their host universities. As RSIF, we're working with 15 selected African host universities. They also go through a selection process just to ensure that they have a degree program that fits within our 5 thematic areas. And you can see the spread of those universities. We have the English-speaking universities, and we have those from the Anglophone countries. And they all have now scholars that they have accommodated, and they're doing their studies. Then we do have what I like to refer to as strategic partnership. Because our program not only has the scholars studying at the universities I have mentioned, they also do go to these international partner institutions. At the moment, we have 21 also selected partner institutions that have objectives that are geared to addressing Africa issues, gaps that we find within the African continent. These institutions have them as part of their agenda. And we have these institutions spread from America, we have them in Europe, we have them in Asia, Korea, and we have 3 of them in Africa, and UM6P is one of these international partner institutions. And we are happy that now they're taking on board our scholars for their sandwich program. So that is really some good news for us. When we talk of this strategic partner placement, The scholars spend 1 year, the first year they spend at the university. This is where they do the core courses that the university does require. They start building up on their proposals, and they have their research shaped up together with the mentors and the supervisors who have been assigned at the university. We also now start linking them with the international partner institutions who, will want them to undertake some of their research activities in their institutions. And for the next 6 to a maximum of 2 years, they're able to go to these institutions where they're able to interact with another set of mentors in collaboration with their host universities. They're able to get well-equipped science laboratories where probably we might not have in our own African setting, cutting-edge science. And at the end of the 3rd year, they're able to go back to the host institution, wrap up their thesis, and be able to submit and graduate. And it is also while they're at the international partner institutions, a lot of publications happen because this is when experiments are being done. So this collaboration works very well for the student. Not only the student, but also the institutions. We are able to form those collaborations that go beyond just only training the scholar. The institutions are able to collaborate either for grants application or even for further research as faculties. When we also look at the status of our scholars right now, we have mentioned we have four cohorts, and we have quite a very good representation of the females. We've been able to be above 30% of our scholars are all females, and they cut across 24 African nationalities. So that's quite representative of Africa, and we hope these numbers will continue to grow even as the scholarship grows. To date, I would say we've achieved quite a bit, and I just want to share a little bit of that. It's been mentioned that we already have 5 scholars of our cohort 1 who have already finished their studies and graduated within the 4-year period. And we'll be hearing from one of them who is amongst the scholars who is going to present today. And not only are they just graduating with their PhD, they graduate with awards. Dr. Gahamani, who is one of our pioneer the scholars, was awarded the Best Postgraduate Student Research Award. This is from the Sokoine University of Agriculture in Tanzania. And that is quite significant because it tells us that the quality of the studies and the research that they're doing is quite significant, and it's quite good and recognized. I'd also want to mention about the publications, and I highlighted that a lot of these happen when the scholars are still within doing their studies. And to date, from 2018, when we started running the program, we already have over 82 publications from these scholars, and you will appreciate it is from the cohort 1s and the cohort 2s, because this is where a lot of the research has been undertaken. And you can see, there's also a very good representation of the women. And then again, it's not just the publications. We look at where these publications are going. What are the impact factor of the journals where these are going? And you can see we have up to 7.9 points of impact factor. That tells you these are really pretty good journals, which tells us the research that these scholars are undertaking is quality. Then, you look at the abstract views, you look at the citations, and you can see their work is being recognized world over by those who are able to interact with them. So these are some of the achievements that we have been able to make as a program, and we're very proud of our scholars. And I think at that point, I will just let them come and give you insights into their journey, what they're doing, how the program has been beneficial to them, the relevance of their studies moving forward. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Dr. Nguku. And let me register apologies from the moderator. I just got word he couldn't make it, but we will step in and push with this. So we will follow the order on the program for the speakers who are also RSIF scholars. And we will start with Dr. Noel Gahamani. We will call you on stage, Noel, and he's going to be presenting his slum, and it will be on the area of antimicrobial resistance. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Noel.
Good afternoon, everyone. As they mentioned, I'm Dr. Noel Gahamanyi. They are going to, I think they can share now my slide. Okay, that's my slide. As I said, I'm Dr. Noel Gahamanyi. I'm an RSIF alumnus. Currently, I'm a lecturer at the University of Rwanda. And I'm glad that I'm here to share the outcome of my research after a journey of 4 years. So I'm going to talk about zoonosis and antimicrobial resistance. But before I go to that, antimicrobial resistance. Can you imagine a world without antibiotics? Some say it will be chaotic. But for me, I may even call it, it will be like an apocalypse. Because antibiotics save lives. So I will come back later on antimicrobials and antimicrobial resistance, but zoonosis. What are zoonosis? Zoonosis, those are infectious diseases that are transmitted from animals to humans. And we have a number of them. We have had Ebola, we have had the influenza. They even say that coronavirus, it could be, it's one of the hypotheses that it is also from animals. So we have a number of them, and it is very difficult that we don't have enough antimicrobials to treat them. We have a limited number of antimicrobials, and the problem is that even in the pipeline to discover new, it is almost dry. Why? Because pharmaceutical companies, they are afraid of not making a profit before resistance comes out. It may take 10 to 15 years to produce an antibiotic, but bacteria or microorganisms are very clever. They can develop resistance even in less than 5 years after the antibiotic or the antimicrobial is put on the market. So it is really challenging that we don't have enough antibiotics, and the little we have, there is increasing resistance due to misuse of antibiotics or antimicrobials, especially in humans and livestock. Some, they use antibiotics for growth promotion or for prophylaxis or to prevent the infection. So misuse of antimicrobials is one of the drivers. So why did I put there fluoroquinolone resistant Campylobacter? My thesis was on Campylobacter, and fluoroquinolone resistant Campylobacter strains is considered by the World Health Organization as one of the 12 priority pathogens for which new drugs are required, meaning it is very challenging. It's a threat to the therapy because of, for example, ciprofloxacin. You may take it and it may not cure you because the pathogen, the bacteria, in my case, Campylobacter, has created the resistance due to overuse of the antimicrobial. That's one of the ways the development of resistance takes place. So I worked on Campylobacter. Campylobacter is one of the bacteria causing diarrhea infections in humans. We call it gastroenteritis. So they say that over 80% of it is in poultry. So eating undercooked poultry, or also from the feces, when they are not well treated, they may go to the environment and they cause the infection. So antimicrobials, let me come back to it. There is a recent study in this 2022, Murray et al., the paper was published in The Lancet. It is estimated that 1.3 millions of people died in 2019 due to immediate directly attributable to antimicrobial resistance. So, and those deaths were above the deaths attributable to malaria, HIV, and even breast cancer, showing how antimicrobial resistance is really a threat to the world today. So it is estimated that by the year 2050, if no action is taken today, 10 million people will be dying of antimicrobial resistance. So we need to act now. Some people take antibiotics when they have a viral infection like a cough or even a cold. No, antibiotics, they do not cure viral infection, they cure bacterial infection. So there is also need to educate people when and how to use antimicrobials. You take the dose and you don't complete it. That also gives pressure to the microbes to develop resistance. So which solutions can we take? There are many, but in my thesis, in my research, I worked on natural products. I used some of the plant extracts like cinnamon. I used some essential oil like clove oil, some phytochemicals like cinnamaldehyde and eugenol. So I found that the bacteria that I worked on, Campylobacter, from humans and poultry, they were resistant to commonly used drugs like tetracycline, like ciprofloxacin. If you go down what we call MIC, it was around even 120 something or 256 microgram per ml. But if you use the natural product like essential oils, I was finding around 50 microgram per ml, showing that the natural products are effective even more than some of the antimicrobials we use. So we need to invest in searching alternative drugs that are effective against those microbes. Also, we are in the era of genomics. You cannot check on a plate only say, it is phenotypically resistance is there. You need to go down to the DNA, you do genomics, you check either whole genome or partial genome, you check the mutations that are there to confirm the resistance. Secondly, we need also to do surveillance. We have seen in this case of corona. Okay, if you don't monitor, you check which strains that are new are coming. So preparedness and surveillance are on, we need them currently so that we can tackle the issue of zoonosis and antimicrobial resistance. Also, we need effective drugs because we have a lot of counterfeit drugs. So if we take a counterfeit drug, it will not cure you. So we need effective antimicrobials. Also vaccines. You know that when you take vaccine, you reduce the chance or the chance of getting infected. So vaccines help us to reduce the occurrence of diseases. So if people are infected, there is a reduction of the infections. If there is a reduction of the infections, it means you will not use the antibiotics or you will not even misuse those antibiotics. My last part is on the contribution of the RSIF training, especially the sandwich program. This was really a golden opportunity for us who have done abroad. For me, I was in South Korea at KIST. It was really very nice. Why? Because as Dr. Ngoku was mentioning, sometimes in our African hospital institutions, we don't have well-equipped laboratories. But when I went to Korea, the lab is well equipped. Secondly, reagents, supplies. In our countries, we have the problem of procurement because it may take some 6 months or more than that to get the reagents. But if when I was in Korea, you order things the following day, they are there in the lab. So your research is faster because you have access to reagents and supplies. Also, after I got my DNA, because I did the DNA extraction, PCR purification, then your DNA, I need to sequence. We know that in our countries, Tanzania, Rwanda, whatever, people send their amplicon to where, like macrogen, it's an example. So macrogen was next to me in South Korea. So I send the sequences immediately after 1 or 2 days, I get the results. So it means even being awarded by the Sokoine, I had many publications. I produced like now 8 publications, 7 and 1 after PhD, 8 publications from my journey. So it's because I had support from this sandwich program by KIST. So I thank also the RSIF because they trained us. We had a lot of capacity building activities where we were trained in like scientific writing, where we were trained in reference management. So this program is very prestigious, and I congratulate all the partners who have contributed to our program. Lastly, I was going to forget the publications. They cost a lot. In some of our countries, we get waivers, but for example, my publications, they have cost around 60,000 USD. And my PI in South Korea, he paid all the money. So Can you please clap for him? Because he did a great job for me. So to conclude, I thank everyone who helped me in this journey. And now it's time for me to implement the knowledge and skills I got. For example, last week, we had the CHOGM in Rwanda. I was in the organizing committee for the CHOGM side event on antimicrobial resistance. As I'm a lecturer also, someone was telling me, if you are a lecturer and you stop at master's, you are like an academic deserter. So thanks PASET to help my dreams come true through undergoing this PhD program. I can't find words to express whatever joy I have and whatever achievement, because we have a short time. I can stop here. The rest may come from the comments and the question that you may ask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Noel. We will reserve any comments to the end, where we will have Dr. Donald Madukwe handling that session of comments at the end. Next, we will have Dr. Emmanuel Efa taking the stage, and his area of specialization is smart agriculture, Internet of Things. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause.
Thank you so much. Please, can you show my slides? And thank you. From the beginning of the whole program, everybody talked about the problem with agriculture, and all the problems seems to be from the theoretical point of view. I think my research is coming to propose a golden solution to begin with that can address most of the challenges we have mentioned from the various sessions, because the issue of agriculture borders on everybody. As we all know, climate change has been a challenge which we have all talked about. And we know that agriculture, as we speak, employs over 1/3 of the economically active global population. In Africa, which is the focus of my research, agriculture employs over 70% of our youth. So it means that if there is a problem with agriculture, it borders on everybody, and it borders on the regional security as well. As we speak now, the impact of climate change on the conventional agriculture is so enormous that the rainfall-dependent agriculture is no longer reliable. There is a need for a solution. This has resulted in food insecurity and unemployment threats in Africa. As we can see up there, the season failure probability map that was taken back in 2014 shows that Africa is gradually losing its farming season. So we need to do something about this. And as we speak now, the solution that has emerged is the IoT-based agri-IoT. That is what hereafter I shall refer to as agri-IoT. But as I am talking now, the technology we have can only be applied in the Western world, but not in Africa. As you can see it's very complex. See the cables they run in the farm before they can set up agri-IoT to implement it. So it's very expensive to be acquired, the existing technology, by our poor farmers. Again, they are very complex to operate by farmers who don't have adequate expertise in agri-IoT. They are founded on fixed communication technologies such as the cellular and the Wi-Fi based technology, and also electrical grid. But in Africa, we know, and as UN data clearly states, as we speak now, less than 50% of Africans have access to reliable internet. So it means the existing technologies they use would not support what we have. Again, they are not robust enough because they are so complex to be deployed and managed by poor people. They are also location restricted. And because of this, there was a need to propose a more robust and affordable solution that can be adopted and used by Africans to address our food insecurity issues. So using this as a foundation, I propose the robust and affordable agri-IoT solution that is based on easily available communication technologies such as Bluetooth Low Energy and LoRa. You don't need to have the internet in the farm. You don't need electricity in the farm. My notes are just like the mobile phone. You just plant them in the farm and they start collecting measurement for you. So I tested my technology using the precision farming use case. So here, this is what I did. I used sensors attached to my devices. I planted them in the farm and they will collect real-time soil moisture data and temperature data to the cloud. You can put my system in automation mode when it will take this measurement depending on the type of crop you have grown on the farm and the rainfall requirements. It can irrigate by itself if you put it on automation, depending on the rainfall requirement or the water requirement, and stop if the threshold is reached. My proposed solution is very simple to deploy and operate by non-experts, and it is ubiquitous. In other words, it is not location restricted. It doesn't rely on any fixed communication infrastructures like the cellular technologies used elsewhere. It uses Bluetooth. So as soon as you plant the sensor node in the farm, turn them on, the next thing is expect your real-time measurement in the cloud, and based on that, send remote messages to the farm to control what you have. Again, this was founded on 3 main frameworks or models I proposed, and it has worked to satisfaction. And from here, I can say that my technology can address the food insecurity and unemployment threat, and also improve crop quality and volumes if this technology reaches the commercialization level. When we started, the earlier speakers spoke about the gap between academia and industry. I have produced the technology. I am a Ghanaian by birth. It is difficult. I have finished. I am back. I am with my university, University of Mines and Technology in Ghana. It is very difficult to even bring your technology to limelight. So I took a bold step. I cannot share everything with you here because of time, but I decided to do a farm myself and deploy my technology in the farm and see how it goes. So I pushed in about $1,000. I did a small watermelon farm during the dry season in my hometown in Kranza. And at the end of 2 months, 6 weeks, I harvested something that was about $5,600 US when about 1,000 was invested. All the neighbors who share, the neighbors in the farm said, I have used black power, juju, to pull all their crops into my farm. This was because even though I was living in Takwa, I was remotely managing my farm in the Bono East region of Nkranza, which is so far apart. It means that if we push money into this one, or if I find a grant to expand this technology, we can really help the Black farmer to get out of the recent poverty issues we have. To end it all, I want to say a very big thank you to the PASET RSIF program for the support they gave me. It was so much enormous because it came in when I was in dire need of the support. I was a lecturer at the university, and we had a circular that if you don't have a PhD, you are given up to 4 or 5 years, they will clear you. So my job security was in limbo. And this scholarship came at the right time to salvage my career dreams. Again, when I started my studies, I went to Senegal. Those who know Senegal know that Senegal is about 99% French. I am Ghanaian, Anglophone. I never studied French in my life, but I had to use about 2 weeks to teach myself French so that I can communicate with my supervisor, because he's also somebody who doesn't understand a single English. So it was a tough journey for me. And COVID-19 also came in. It was a very tough one, but by the grace of God, I have completed, I've defended and graduated. And the credit goes to my supervisors, the RSIF program, for this enormous support. I have reported to my university, and if I look at what I have gone through compared to my colleagues, I see that my training has prepared me more to make significant contribution to the industry relatively. And the credit goes to the bold vision taken by the PASET RSIF. To end it all, I would say that the PASET program has also widened my network experiences. And today, if I can talk to you with a title doctor, it is because of the support from PASET. So I want to say thank you to PASET, thank you to advisors, and thank you for the cooperation and the audience.
And many thanks, Dr. Emmanuel Effa. In one of the videos, I remember him saying that we will not fail you, and he did not fail us. Another round of applause. So next we have, I like to call them Doctor in Waiting so that they remember what is ahead. Doctor in Waiting, Miss Fatoumata Thiam. And as she comes, just to let us know that she will be speaking about precision irrigation systems. Ladies and gentlemen, Doctor in Waiting, Miss Fatoumata Thiam. Let's give a round of applause.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fatoumata Thiam. What is that? Okay. So I'm working on designing a self-irrigation system based on Internet of Things. We'll just want to ask one question. Do you know how much water it takes for you? How much water it takes for a specific plant or specific food to grow? I have tried to go on Google and do my own research and see how much water we need to grow a specific food or any kind of food. And it was surprising to see that for one serving of almond, we need like 23 gallons of water. And for one egg, we need 53 gallons of water. And for one serving of dairy milk, we need 53 gallons of water. It's crazy. And we have all this available to us, but there is a lot of things happening behind, a lot of resources being used. And we know that globally, 70% of the global water resource is used in farming. And 40% of that is in irrigation farming. So here we see that there is a need to switch the paradigm coming to irrigation. And with this climate change hitting us, there is this need of changing the way we irrigate our plants. So when I was young, I used to go to my village and I used to see my grandmother go to her farm. She used to grow any kind of crop from time to time. And she would go morning and evening to check her plants. And I was feeling a little bit hurt for her because it's far and she would work in and out in the morning and evening to go check her plants, whether it rained or not. So what if she was able to know what is the actual state of the soil of her farm? Does she need to irrigate? Does she need to go walk up to the farm and do that irrigation? And what if from her house, she was able to monitor that and activate her irrigation system. And these are questions that can be answered with IT. And in my work, these are the questions that we raise and we try to give answer to. So my work, which is done in Senegal, specifically in the Niayes. The Niayes is a geographical location in Senegal, which is where farmers operate intensive farming. And that area alone produces around 80% of the vegetable market supply. And you can imagine that it's a really, really big asset for the country. But it's been exposed by hyper-urbanization, coastal erosion, among others. And we noticed also two key issues coming to irrigation, which is lack of automation in the farming systems, but also lack of infrastructure coming to water access. Because sometimes we have point of water, but accessing to that water is hard for the farmers. And the second one is mismanagement of irrigation. In fact, under irrigation is bad for the plants. It can cause disease and many other problems to the plants. Over irrigation also can lead to nutrients leaking, but also washing out fertilizer, which is really money wastage. So here we needed to tackle that those 2 points in our thesis. And this thesis aimed to set up and build an infrastructure, an agricultural IoT, Internet of Things infrastructure for irrigation management, but also to help monitor crops. And also we wanted to be sure that this system is reliable and it's easy to implement and to reproduce. And we used an expensive material to make possible that infrastructure. And we also needed to have a system which is power efficient, because it will be deployed in the farm out of nowhere. And we really needed to have a sustainable power supply. And we used solar to realize that project. And also we needed it to be robust and really weatherproof, because to be able to resist to extreme climate changes. Where we work in US, where the climate sometimes can be very, very, very cold for the material. And also we work in the second part in Senegal, where the climate can go up to 40 degrees Celsius. So we were able to deploy this work in the United States at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, where we get to spend 2 years during our Sandwich program placement. And second deployment was in Senegal at University Gaston Berger of Saint-Louis. And we were able to conduct several experiments to complete our research on that. And actually after 4 years of research in precision irrigation, we are able to collect all the data, and we are in the process of using this data with artificial intelligence and other artificial intelligence in order to produce a planning, a precision irrigation planning, but also a self-healing system, because this system can be complex for farmers to manage. And our work is to help the farmers, facilitate him to not manipulate too much the deployed node. So I thank PASET and RSIF, for financing and funding this work for me. And I thank also the ICIPE team and my supervisors, my somebody in at University Gaston Berger and Alexander Wiglinski at Worcester Polytechnic Institute in the United States. Thank you for listening to me. Okay.
Another round of applause for Dr.in-Waiting, Fatoumata Thiam. And next, we will have Dr. Richard Koech. Dr. Richard Koech research is on solar cells, and that falls under the renewable energy thematic area of RSIF. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause as he comes on stage.
Okay, thank you very much. All the protocols observed. Good afternoon. Good morning for those who are online. Maybe they are from some other countries where it is still morning now. So as you have heard, I'm from Kenya, an RSIF alumni, and currently teaching in a university in Kenya called Moi University. I want to talk about solar cells, as we have actually heard from the previous presenters that energy is the key driver for socio-economic and technological advancement. So for us to realize any progress in various sectors that we depend on as a continent, we need to have an investment in energy so that we are able to drive those technological and socioeconomic developments. However, our energy sectors are faced with a number of challenges that are caused by the rising demand for energy resulting from the increase in population and the rapid growth of industries. And also we have the challenges of depletion of reserves for the conventional energy resources based on fossil fuels. So this depletion of reserves will cause price escalation, and also this reliance on these conventional fossil fuels can also cause some problems when there is disruption in supplies, like what is happening now between the war between Ukraine and Russia. We felt some impacts, even if we are not in those regions. Then we have another problem, which is the climate change resulting from emission of greenhouse gases from the conventional fossil fuel-based energy resources. So how are we going to address these problems in the energy sector? So we need to leverage on our resource endowment so that we can address these challenges. We know that our continent is blessed with enough solar radiation. So we need to develop technologies for collecting the energy from the sun and converting it to electricity, which is the form of energy that we need. If we look at the map of the world, you will actually see that Africa, especially the sub-Saharan Africa, is still in darkness. So we need to act. We need to have solar energy technologies that are affordable to majority of the population. And my research was on one of these affordable photovoltaic technologies that is based on perovskite solar cells. So you can see from the diagram there that this device is made of different layers. So what needs to be done is to actually improve the properties of those layers and the interfaces between them so that you can collect more electricity from these solar cells. So we need to do that. And in my PhD work, I actually focused on the solar energy absorbing layer and another layer that we call the electron transport layer. I tried to improve them by putting some additives so that we can have more energy coming from that device. And we actually realized that by using some polymeric additives in the active layer and also cesium bromide, we are able to improve the efficiency and the stability, because these solar cells have the problem of degrading faster. That is what we need to address in order to realize very good results from these solar cell technologies. I would want to take this opportunity to thank RSIF for providing a very conducive environment for me to carry out research in an area that I thought may not be possible in Africa. But through these collaborations, I was able to do research and improved the performance of these solar cells. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you to you, Dr. Richard Koech. He's from Kenya. He didn't say that part, did he? Yeah, he did. That he said he's from Moi University. Last but not least, we have another doctor in waiting. Very soon we will be celebrating, and that's doctor in waiting, Mrs. Pauline Muganyinka, and a round of applause for her as she comes on stage. She's going to be speaking about something that we wear. Most of us, we like to wear gold as a chain, as a ring. Over to you, Pauline.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jean Pauline Munganyinka. I'm Rwandan by nationality. I'm in the final year of my PhD program at African University of Science and Technology in Abuja. I'm working on geometeorological studies of selected gold ores by using environmental friendly lixiviant. Do you know why Africa is a mother of raw materials, but we are the one consuming the finished product? Do you know why? That's why I'm here. Actually, I'm working on gold, and everyone knows gold, right? In Africa, we have different minerals. And among of those minerals, we have gold. Gold occurs as coarse particles, and these coarse particles can be recovered by using gravity separation. In artisanal and small-scale miners extract this gold from coarse particles, by using local methods. And those simple local methods, including panning, simple sluicing, and most of them are inefficient and leading to the loss. That is why. And gold extracted from gravity concentrate by using mercury, which is a toxic chemical. And the fine gold left in the tailings are usually recovered by using cyanide. And you know, it is also a toxic chemical. So here comes my research. I'm looking for how to characterize different gold ores and use an environmental friendly reagent to recover the fine gold particles. I have been conducting different research on that. Thank you. Where I was using the ball concentrator. And this is simple tool to make sure that this simple tool is efficient. I collected the tailings on the mining site and reprocess again. Surprisingly, I found a negligible amount of gold. And this is simple to use. And it can be using, we can use solar energy to in processing. And also, I use the thiourea, which is environmental friendly reagent, to recover the gold from concentrate. This diurea actually, they call it as effective, it has a disadvantage which is cost related. To come up with this issue, different leaching condition has been optimized where I reduce the chemical consumption to reduce the cost of this urea. So I have I obtained like 96.2% of gold from gold concentrate. This is amazing, right? So by using this urea reagent, we can come up with different impacts, which is environmental sustainability, waste reduction, value addition, of course, and economic impact. And this will lead to the sustainable development in Africa. So I think RSIF will help me to achieve this. I think without it, I can't be here, right? So RSIF helped me to translate my knowledge and my dream into meaningful skills. And now I know how to link academic and industry. And this was a great opportunity also to collaborate with different, to know the true link. This was supported by being at the Worcester Polytechnic Institute in America for 2 years, where I was in a well-equipped laboratory with a good supportive environment. And I was able to do the laboratory work despite the COVID-19 came. And that one was a big challenge to everyone. But when it comes to me, when I was abroad, raising a small kid, it was a quite, I can't mention it, but if you want to know more, you can go online. I have been publishing the paper on it, where you can read the studying abroad in COVID-19 pandemic. You will see different experience of 3 females of RSIF. You will know more. And about RSIF, the training and the conference was actually helping me to know more and to know more. And now I know you, right? So I thank RSIF for everything and for more. I can't mention all, but thank you. And thank you for everything, and thank you for attending. Thank you.
It's gold, we can applaud better. And it's been mined using an environmental friendly method, not mercury. Thank you so much. Doctor in waiting, Miss Pauline Munganyinka, and Dr. Donald Mudukwe, are you there with us online?
Yes, I'm online, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sir. So I'll mention just a few words about Dr. Madukwe as he joins us online. He's the head of agronomy services and farmer-centric projects here with OCP Africa in Nigeria. And he's also a member of the International Society of Precision Agriculture and Africa Association of Precision Agriculture. So ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Dr. Mudukwe, who will give us some comments. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I have enabled my video for a short time. For network's sake, the bandwidth, I would disable my video shortly. Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the speakers and the moderator. Thank you for the time. I want to appreciate the first speaker, Dr. Evelyn, for taking us through the training in RSIF. I think it's a well-packaged process and really packaged to give the candidates good exposure during their period of training. I also want to comment that this training should not be limited to partners in the academia alone, to universities abroad and other. I think industries, companies should be targeted more for partnership. This is going to help breed graduates that will be consumed into the system immediately and not let a lot of graduates still wonder what to do after the rigorous training. I think the industry should play a bigger role in providing areas of research, providing the real problems that these institutes should tackle by way of research and training of human resources. This also was evident during the presentation of Dr. Noel. He mentioned the difficulties of getting samples analyzed in African universities, probably due to inadequate equipment. I think funding should also be targeted at equipping these selected institutions, Dr. Evelyn mentioned, to the capacity that candidates will be able to run their studies in country and only travel abroad just to associate with candidates from other backgrounds. This is because transporting samples across borders will leave us to wonder a lot about the integrity of the results that can come after due to handling and other factors. So I think what RSIF is doing is in the right direction. I have seen various presentations, even from the previous sessions, that science is at work to solve the problems of man. Dr. Emmanuel's IoT research is an interesting one. And I think that closer relationship with industries will provide real problems that need solution. For example, these technologies should be more targeted to create environment for efficient use of resources other than water. For example, the farmer is not interested in the technology. The farmer is interested in improving his or her yield. The farmer wants to know, deploying the IoT in the farm, what will be the impact in my yield, and how will it influence my livelihood? This is areas I think for those whose studies are still ongoing should try to see how to solve real farmers' problems, solutions that are not going to stay on the shelf, solutions that will be consumed immediately they are offered. This is why they are solutions. We should not invest so much energy in technologies that we need several years to consume. For the irrigation by Ms. Tam, I think it's a very good work. Water is actually a serious problem in this time of climate change. Managing water efficiently is key to improve production, especially under the irrigation system. Yes, we can imagine the volume of water required to grow a crop, and not managing efficiently or continuing to farm like in the days of our parents would not bring any new change and will not change the narrative at all, especially with improvement of yields. We also need to gear these technologies towards the day-to-day encounter of the farmers. This is to say that research should work closely with the community. I mean, researchers should work closely with the communities to provide real-time solutions. Thank you.
And many thanks, Dr. Madukwe, for those comments about the presentations from the slum. I'm looking at my chronometer and I see we've tried today to catch up with time, and we were almost there, but we would not bring this day to an end without getting a summary of everything we have gone through in brief. And I will want to find out if Mr. Arun Sharma, if you're there online.
Hi, Bonfas. Yeah, I'm online.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Arun, and welcome. And I will leave stage so that I can also sit there and listen to the summary of the day. Over to you, Arun.
Thanks, Bonfas. You look very nice in your suit. I wish I could also have such a suit on. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there, but I'm privileged to be able to deliver a summary of the day's events with thanks to all of the speakers and the rapporteurs and the moderators. I just wanted to summarize the day in a couple of minutes. So today was day one of the Pan-African Hybrid Conference of the PASET Regional Scholarship and Innovation Fund, 28th of June 2022. And in the opening session, the conference welcome and the opening ceremony, we had the official opening of the conference, and we had speakers emphasizing the important role that science and technology plays in progressing Africa's development. Speakers emphasized the need to utilize the current crises, both COVID and the Ukrainian-Russian war, to catalyze local innovation for solutions to some of the key challenges that Africa faces, especially around food insecurity as well as climate change. And the role of African universities as front runners in catalyzing the spirit that's required for responding to these challenges was identified, and the importance of identifying opportunities instead of difficulties for the continent. We then had two keynote addresses, one from Dr. Guerir of IRD France and Dr. Kamau of ICIPE. And the keynotes covered the need that the pandemic has shown to put an emphasis on science. And Dr. Guerir talked about the commitment of IRD from France to create partnerships to foster research in STI in collaboration with over 38 countries in Africa, and the importance of ownership of the Sustainable Development Goals for creating partnerships and investing in interdisciplinary research. And she underlined the importance of this as a way for excuse me, creating a future for the STI sector. Dr. Kamau talked about the role of the pandemic in bringing out the role of science in society and the need to accelerate research and utilizing discovery, and the importance of a roadmap that includes two facets, both environmental and social, in terms of impact due to the biodiversity and transversality of the problems that face Africa and the world. And finally, Dr. Kamau talked about the importance of capacity building needed for researchers with a focus on youth and female researchers, and the need for continuous training to strengthen domains and to invest in research projects in order to facilitate capacity building. Our second session talked about the digital revolution with global challenges and implications for Africa. Speakers talked about the importance for Africa to build strong foundational and digital skills to unlock the opportunities that were provided by the global digital economy, And it was also underlined that there's a need to understand that not all careers in the future of work need to be directly mainstream technology or ICT jobs. But when we have experts in IoT, robotics, AI, and data science, that will also have impact in fields such as agriculture, health, and education, and many others. So those are fields where that impact all of us writ large. We noted that speakers noted that Africa is experiencing adverse effects of climate change, despite itself being a low polluter, and research into mitigation of climate change is important. And in order to do this, research into skill sets, including AI, software engineering, machine learning, and human-computer interrogation are important. Speakers talked about the need for networks to be leveraged to promote innovation around artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies. And it was suggested that joint research projects and supervision of students to complement the rather few experts in this area are important, and noting that every organization has its specialty, and therefore close collaboration and establishing relevant partnerships are key to promote catch-up and cross-learning. It was noted that new technologies and how they impact technology in the future affect today's world as well, and the importance of learning skills continuously, and especially learning how to learn was underlined. And in order to do this, building networks to bridge current shortages of experts and collaboration to use available technologies. For example, creating platforms to share data, to share toolkits, and to share models that provide access to information to experts who may be in a different sector. And last, finally, in this session, we had underlined the need to adapt, recognizing that technology is the ingredient that will make it possible for Africa to adapt and for businesses in all sectors to adapt. Session 3, we touched on creating shared value, and speakers talked about the importance of STI, science, technology, and innovation, and STI policy being crucial for economic growth and industrial competitiveness. And not only STI, but enabling policies and structures such as commercialization structures being necessary for innovation, as well as complementary policies such as trade policies. It was also noted that not all innovations are driven directly by research and development, but all innovations are important and must be brought to light to improve the innovation ecosystem. There was a panel discussion touching on nurturing collaboration between universities and industry. And panelists noted that universities in Africa it was felt that they are yet to graduate from the traditional roles of investing in research. It was noted that science communication is a key issue. While most research is technical, there is a need to simplify its scientific outputs to show value to the end users. It was noted that African industry has much to gain from the research that's being done in African universities, and there's the opportunity to tap the pool of African experts, and it can be facilitated through academia industry partnerships to access these skills. And if these partnerships can publish research outputs, it'll help industry to understand what research is happening and how that can be used to create value. The entire ecosystem should be looked at from conceptualization to scalability, and it was recommended that universities don't only focus on publication as the desired or the end result. Incentives for industrial partners to engage with academia was proposed, for example, tax incentives, and the importance of communicating science that's coming out of universities, especially that which is relevant to industry, was underlined as being especially important, and the value of that research in addressing social impact. And finally, and just before the summary, we had a science slam where RSIF scholars, we had 5 different slams covering topics including zoonoses and antimicrobial resistance, smart agricultural IoT, precision irrigation, solar cells, and gold mining. So that concludes the summary. Thank you very much. I hope everyone had a good day. Thank you.
A round of applause for Mr. Arun Sharma. So, ladies and gentlemen, here in Morocco and those of us joining us online, this marks the end of day 1 of the RSIF conference. We will continue with day 2 tomorrow, and we are requested to join on time tomorrow we will keep to the time. So for those in Morocco, you're invited to a cocktail, which will be the usual place we have had our coffee break. And word from outside is that the cocktail is ready. You will just proceed there without having to leave the building. Otherwise, I wish you all a good evening and a good night. Bye-bye.